Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB?
How we doing?
Oh, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
Just consuming a lot of basketball last couple days.
Yeah. That was the sound of a guy who's as annoyed as I am, but about multiple different things. Isn't that funny? I like this whole. I don't know if I like it. I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
So we've been saying this for probably, I don't know, 6 months maybe.
I think probably, yeah.
It's the tenor has changed. I don't know if like he's too close to it or there's just too much background noise,
Mm.
and it's like it's a small circle, so people will say this and intimate this, and a lot of guys around there kind of have those ears close to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think they hear a lot, and people, they're accessible,
Yeah.
so people tell them a lot. I think this is an administration and a staff that is over it.
Mm.
It's just over it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be a deal where I think it's confrontational or but you better come correct, because they're just not going to play the game. I don't think the culture is it's close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got a couple of things you got to deal with here, and we'll see what happens to a few of these guys after this last round of mat drills. But I think they know where they want to be in the landscape from a fiscal standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You know where you want to be, I think, from a roster construction standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You're figuring out what practice is going to look like, and you've taken a look at your financial data. You're plugging the numbers of your athleticism, and you're looking at revenue. Like they just want to play football.
Yeah.
So I think anything that isn't for the team experience is going to be, I don't know, man. It's just I had to bring back this coach Rhule today.
Drill Sergeant Coach Rhule?
Yeah, I had to bring that guy back today because in conjunction with Troy Dannon, because there's this mutual. All right, man. Just what we got to do. This is how we're going to do it, and we're going to have to. Some people are probably going to be bothered, but we can't make everybody happy. So we're not just going to be a 6. We may have to be a 10 in one area and a 4 in the other for a while, but that 10
Mm-hmm.
will raise that 4. I think that's if the approval rating on making people happy is a 4,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to try to win at a 10 level, and then the approval rating will raise.
Yeah, the approval rating takes care of itself at
Right?
that point,
Like
right?
that's what they're banking on.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it's a super interesting dynamic right now, because I do think, I don't know, I'm not as, I understand if you're Coach Rhule and you're the staff that there's a lot going on outside in terms of chatter and noise and whatever, but that's just kind of what the job is.
Mhm.
And so I'm not terribly bothered by it.
I'm not either. I think you just finally have a coach that his self-awareness and his emotional intelligence
Mhm.
is significantly higher than I think we're used to.
Significantly higher than we've experienced in recent years. I think
we're used to. So I think that's a lot of it.
I think that's probably part of it, and the way I took it yesterday was, this is a guy that realizes that no matter what else happens, because there's been a lot of positive things that have happened since Coach Rhule got hired, right? I think that's true. I believe that. But I think he realizes that until the wins come, the approval rating is just going to be what it is.
Who do you think was more down to business? Was it Coach Rhule or Jim Boeheim?
You don't want to get me started on Jim Boeheim.
Do you like my text?
Yeah, that guy's just bad at his job.
I don't
know why you'd have him on a broadcast.
Yeah.
I don't know what he adds.
All right, so for that particular question is Boeheim.
Well, I don't even think that's down to business. Like, there's this difference between being like Coach Rhule is kind of no nonsense. Jim Boeheim's just bad.
Not a wet
He's
blanket.
just bad at it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that's a different thing to me.
Oh shoot!
Like, there's one thing being serious, and there's one thing being just this, like the Debbie Downer sketch from SNL. Like, that's Boeheim.
I liked. So here's my favorite thing that I think I'm going to rally around. If you're a fan of football and Nebraska, you finally have you finally have guys that won't make excuses or think that Nebraska can't be good or should be good.
So I think that's a huge shift.
That is a
monumental shift.
Yeah, philosophically.
Yeah.
That's just the way they think.
Honestly, we probably haven't.
You like that?
I do like that. Because we probably haven't seen, and this might make some people a little cranky, we probably have.
Everybody's cranky. Like, what aren't people mad about?
We probably haven't had a coach that believed that was possible at Nebraska since Bill Callahan. Whatever other faults Callahan had, it felt like he believed he could do big things at this place.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like he could recruit at a high level, and he did. He felt like he could modernize the offense, team, whatever, and he tried to and was successful to a certain degree. I mean, people forget they did go to a Big 12 championship game and had the Offensive Player of the Year, who is currently the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. Just whatever. You know, like that part gets skimmed over a little bit.
Well, that's what we're on already.
Well, I'm just saying, like.
Well, it's okay. Just join it. Shane, how's your mood? Your mood good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Mine is sketch, but we're going to rally.
We're gonna,
It's flickering.
For whatever faults Bill Callahan had, it didn't seem like limitations were one of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Bo Pelini certainly felt like this place had limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue Mike Riley wasn't. I don't even know what Mike Riley thought, but I don't think he was shooting for the stars.
Yeah.
But like maybe it wasn't a limitations on the program. Maybe that was just hey, I'm Mike Riley. We're going to do this.
Although I do think he was a lot smarter than we give him credit for.
I agree. I just don't know that he thought about things that way.
Right.
I actually will defend Mike Riley. Like, he was put in a bad spot.
What's that?
Scott Frost, pretty early on, I think, was just trying to keep his head above water and wasn't really allowed himself to think about big picture things. Because when you start 0-6 at your alma mater, like that's a tough way to start things out, right? So it's been probably 20 years since we had somebody that didn't feel like there were limitations on this place. That's part of the reason I ride with Coach Rhule.
And you know what else I think it is?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're big into victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
We just are as a country, as people, and in relationships.
One of the worst things about the internet is that's kind of led to a lot of that.
It's just a lot of victimhood. He just refuses to be a victim.
Yeah.
So I think what he
goes on the offensive.
Yeah.
He presses the pedal.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I think that will take some getting used to.
And it can be frustrating when there's actually sometimes some reason to feel like a victim.
Yeah.
Right? Like when something has happened to you or something does.
It just doesn't shape his behavior as much as it shapes ours.
I don't think it shapes his behavior at all, which is what bothers us a little bit.
Although it will force him to be proactive about some things.
Sure.
Right? Like he's only going to listen to.
But he'll go the other way. If there's a victimhood thing or if there's something where Nebraska actually is victimized by something, he'll just go the other way.
I think it's taken a while for some of his players to get used to too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
which the players need to get used to.
Like, hey man, we're not making excuses for close games. We're not making excuses for this. We're not.
This is what we were talking about with Nebraska basketball yesterday. Honestly.
Yeah.
It really is.
I do have some solutions for that too.
Do you?
Yeah. I do have a guy I think they should go get.
Who?
Are we going? Like what?
We're bouncing around. There's a lot to get to today.
We'll get back to that.
We got to stay fluid.
And I think you could do it for a couple $100,000 pay raise.
Yeah. You talking about a coach or a player?
Coach.
Okay.
They're one and the same, to be honest.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of people around here
that's what you call a radio tease.
I think there's a lot of people around here that think that this guy is about as good as it gets. About as good as it gets. This.
Do I know who this is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Am I very familiar with this person?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I'm coming from off the grid a little.
I am too.
I'm coming from off the grid a little.
You want to say it on 3?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Preston Murphy.
Oh, I was in the right neighborhood. Former assistants.
I think you go get Preston Murphy.
Yeah.
You go to Troy Dannon. You say, listen, I know you're fielding some calls, right? One of my guys in particular. I know you're fielding some calls.
So you're talking about bringing him on Fred's staff?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were talking about replacing Fred with someone.
No.
Preston Murphy would fix a lot of Fred's problems.
And it's like I was talking. So I was talking to my guy for, I don't know, probably 45 minutes. They need a whole philosophical change. It's kind of what you're talking about, but not really. You have to make a wholesale philosophical change on how you want to run your program, right? Because you don't have an Otzelberger anymore. You even were kind of on the right track with what's his buckets? Abdomasi. But you rack the relationship part of it versus the mercenary part.
Sure.
But that's what you have to do. Because I said this yesterday, and I'm going to keep saying this. I don't know where this came from. I don't know if it was message boards. I don't know if it was somebody in the media. Nebraska do not have to have an NIL issue. I firmly 100% believe that. It's not an NIL.
That the money's there if they need it.
It's not an NIL issue.
Because that's what keeps bringing up.
I don't know where it came from. I don't know. I don't know who said it. Maybe I'm missing it because I don't always listen to.
No, I hear it a lot. I don't
always listen to other media, so maybe somebody else said that.
Maybe. I don't know where it came from either, but it is out there.
I would take that to task with whoever said that.
So
I would.
I will say one thing about bringing in Preston Murphy because I think he's terrific.
He is.
He really is very good to me when he was at Creighton. Was very helpful when I was trying to do some reporting and stuff. I like Preston Murphy a lot. Good guy. Really good recruiter, really good basketball coach. My only hesitation would be that if you don't have, I don't even know it's a philosophical shift. I think it's a philosophical narrowing. I need you to really dial in on what it is you want, right? Until that happens, it can get better, but there is a ceiling on how good you can be.
Yeah,
until Fred really dials in on who he wants to be. Because Preston can go out and get those guys.
So it starts with so why I say you're kind of in the neighborhood yesterday is you do need a philosophical you need to paint the picture of how you want to play.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Preston will go get the guys.
Whatever that is.
Pick one.
And
stick with it.
And I heard this from another really good coach in the city, and you can narrow this down. He's a really good coach. And we were talking one time, and he said the one thing that people don't understand that Coach Murphy brought to the table was he was arguably the best that he'd ever been around in terms of drill work and skill development.
That's 100% accurate.
So
I'll vouch for that.
That's missing right now. It just is. It's for whatever the reason. It's missing. And I think, listen, he's making $400K in the SEC. Go to Coach Dannon. Go to Troy Dannon. You say, look,
600 gets it done.
I really want to get to maybe 7.
Let's call it 750. Just be good.
Troy's amazing.
750 definitely gets it done.
But I think you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, the best assistant.
But because I know a lot of the people that he's hearing from, they're not like friends of mine, but I mean, we definitely will exchange.
You run in circles.
Yeah, we definitely will exchange messages, right? Yeah. And I kind of know how they feel about the basketball program. And it's like, that might get it done.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. I listen, I am dead serious. I'm not pulling that out of my rear end.
I would think that 750 would get it done.
I don't know the hard number. You're going to have to.
I will say the top assistants do make 7 figures.
Gotta do it. You
Like
want to
the
win.
top assistants make seven
You
figures.
want to win.
That's what Al Huss was offered to go to Illinois, was 7 figures. That was several years ago now. Now, Illinois basketball probably plays in a little different pool than Nebraska basketball, but not dramatically.
But so and it's twofold because it solves my problem that I was telling you yesterday that I think is the one thing that we don't talk about.
What's that?
The perception.
Sure.
If
you go out and pay a big time,
it's the
that helps change the perception.
Yeah. It's
like, Preston Murphy is a serious name.
It's the 51-year-old bachelor who has the world by the tail that can't settle down with a girl.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, she probably thinks there's something wrong with this guy. Play on, player. He's probably, he's just, he's this, he's that. Like, what's wrong with him? Right? Like, that's Nebraska basketball.
Yeah.
They have this, they have that, they have all these things, and yet they can't do this. Something's wrong with them. You get the perception problem answered too.
Yeah.
Because the sales of it is 90% of getting guys in.
Mm-hmm. And Preston Murphy can definitely sell.
It just is.
Yeah. No,
so
you
need a guy like that.
Because here's
you need a guy like that.
You for sure do. And Preston Murphy's a great pull.
Thank you.
I just really struggle because the perception, you're right, the perception's a real thing, but it's also imminently overcomable. Because
yes and no. You either have to win or get a couple of dudes to sell it.
Right. But either way, you can overcome it. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a
Yeah, but you make it seem like it's as easy as flipping the light switch on. Because I go back to yesterday, we act like they didn't try. They've tried.
But I am watching Rutgers land 2 top 5 NBA lottery
picks.
You
go. I would challenge you, and you're not dumb. Go look at Rutgers' staff.
No, I understand, but it's overcomable. That's my point. Like
it's overcomable with what we're talking about in terms of staff, how you have to build the staff.
100%. But that's what I mean.
I mean, that's how this game is played.
For sure.
We lived in this world for a long time.
Yeah.
Like that's how this game is played.
There's a reason that Al Huss is one of the best recruiters in the country.
Yeah, and
because he came from La Lumiere in Indiana, where he had these incredible prep connections. Like that's where he gets his start in coaching, and it starts with the fact that he's this incredible preps coach that has great connections all over the country.
I mean, he was, and Huss is not dumb, right? Huss knows where he is. He's going to, at High Point, he's going to win every year until he wants a new job.
Yeah, until he finds a job.
Because he's always going to have better players.
Yeah, because they have the resources, and he's a better recruiter.
He's a unbelievable recruiter.
Yeah. So he's just gonna dominate the Big South every year
until he wants to do something different.
Until he finds a job that he likes.
Yeah. He's not. I mean, he doesn't have to be in a hurry either.
Just whenever Greg's ready, I'm good.
Yeah, that would be. So I wonder, and I bet Mac. I don't know. We should probably talk to him. He's busy. I bet. I don't know. Would that be too easy for a guy with Huss mentality? Because I know Mac wouldn't mind it.
What do you mean too easy? Like you want him to? He wants to struggle more?
No, hear my heart.
No, I'm asking. I'm not trying to be.
It would be like me just. It would be. So it's different.
Yeah.
But the same. It would be like me just taking a job at Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
But there's this part of me that would be like, isn't that what everybody expects me to do? Could I go someplace else, right? Could I go to, I don't know what I'm saying, but that's a hypothetical. Yeah. So Huss going back to Creighton would be a natural thing. Maybe too natural for a guy like Huss.
I don't know that everybody, I understand what you're saying. I don't know that everybody's wired that way.
No, I know.
I'm curious if Huss is.
I just wonder if that's a thing.
Yeah, maybe. But I think a lot of people also kind of want that.
You know,
like they want to
so
return.
You want a similar example?
What's that?
It'd be like Coach Rhule going back to Penn State.
Sure.
Coach Rhule does not want to go back to Penn State.
Yeah.
It's just.
I also think, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But like I do know Coach Huss and his family really liked it here.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason they didn't end up in Illinois. Like I think I would love it if Al Huss was the next head coach here. Whenever Mac is done. Just chill out at High Point for a minute.
You and most.
Yeah, I don't think that's
fans.
A hot take.
Not a hot take.
Right? There was a time when like D-Rock was the guy, and I still wouldn't be mad about that. You know?
I don't think this season is not indicative of D-Rock's
No, I don't.
prowess. That team was decimated,
Yeah.
starting with his son.
Yeah, no, he's a phenomenal basketball coach. I wouldn't be mad about D-Rock. But
I remember watching them early in one of those tournaments around it's either Christmas or Thanksgiving, and they were playing Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, man, West Virginia may have a chance. And I was watching Chucky and little DeVries go at it. I'm like, oh, this is like old school.
It's taking you back to your AAU days.
Yeah. But I just think that's
they started 11-2.
Yeah.
And
I told you, and I said, man, I think West Virginia might be pretty good.
Yeah.
Remember that? That seemed like eons ago.
They had some good wins. They had they have Gonzaga. They lost.
Yeah, it was that tournament. Was that Atlanta? Where was that? It was the floor was dark and it looked like a strobe globe for.
It was right after
Solid Gold. Did you ever used to watch Solid Gold? Shane, did you watch Solid Gold?
Sometimes. It was pretty
Anyway,
solid
that's what
when
the
I saw
floor
it.
reminded me of in the tournament.
So they got wins against Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas.
I'm telling you,
Iowa State.
I'm like, I think they could be pretty good.
They had some good wins, but they got on the struggle bus a little bit.
Well, losing your best player, that'll happen.
That's not great. It's not ideal.
So I think that the temperament has to change too, because you just can't keep flipping the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to AC yesterday, and he does a lot of studies and analytics of college basketball, right? Because obviously kind of playing the NIL game with Creighton and stuff. And I may be misremembering, but he had a funny stat. He said over the last, was it 10 years or 8 years? Teams in the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
The average of teams in the top 25, 3/5, over half of their starters were still coming from high school.
That makes sense. I
thought it was a little high. But I knew he sat down and was crunching the numbers with Raz.
Yeah.
So not that he needed validity, but I just started thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, you know what? That's a lot of what I think football wants to do.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And it's easier to not be 3/5 in a smaller sport like hoops than it would be in football. And I still think Nebraska wants to do it that way.
Because you're basically saying 2 starters are transfers.
Yeah.
For most top 25 teams.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense.
Does it?
But I think there's a skewed perception at the top, because I think there are some top programs that will go out and hunt. And there's some program, like St. John's is a really good example this year. They get a lot of attention because they're this turnaround team and this kind of Cinderella story and Patino and whatever. And they went and built their roster a certain way, right? I think Kentucky's another example of a lot of transfers this year, right? Mark Pope's coming in, new coach, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think there's some very high-profile examples of it being more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go down kind of team by team, because the top 25 makes it a larger sample
And I think
size.
it was the average, yeah.
Like, you go through teams that end up, especially in the back end of the top 25, you look at, and those are teams that are still built a little bit more traditionally, and then just sprinkle in transfers here and there to come. That's what Creighton's probably going to do next year, right?
That's what they have done.
Right, it is. But it's probably getting what they're going to do next year.
That's what Mac's always done. He's always supplemented.
Like, Ashworth wouldn't be here if Nembhard didn't leave.
Yeah.
Right? Trout very easily could have been here from his freshman year, but, took a little detour. So he counts as a transfer, but not a starter, at least not at this point. But then you go, okay, Fedor is a Kalkbrenner, Fedor, Jason Green, Jackson McAndrew, who am I missing? Ty Davis, Fred King.
Yeah.
All those guys are
Green next
recruits. Yeah, like all those guys are freshman recruits. You're really only looking at Ashworth and Trout as big-time and Pop.
Look at the really good year with Foster, and he had to sit the first year, which people forget.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago. You still had to sit a year out.
Yeah. And which sounds bizarre.
It does. It sounds so weird. Now, but it was the same thing with Watson, Huff, and Foster all went through that in back-to-back years but that's really the only time where it's shifted more toward transfers at Creighton. It feels like is that when they were transitioning from Missouri Valley to Big East, and the recruiting you had to give the recruiting a couple years to catch up because that's how basketball recruiting works. So you start getting those kids at like 15, right? So there's like that makes sense to me when you say it. I think there is a skewed perception because of a handful of outliers that make it seem like it's more dramatic than that. I think the same thing's true in football.
Yeah, basketball and on the heels of Coach Rhule, and people think it's kind of this new thing, and I think he's just more comfortable with the direction, so you're hearing more.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been in there because he's pretty authentic. So I don't know if it's really an emotional shift as much as there's just depth to his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's kind of he started with baby steps. Wow, this is like you guys won 4 games last year. Like, how much can you tell me about what it takes to win?
Yeah.
Kind of let me do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, hey, this is kind of what you get with me, right?
It's going to take a couple years.
And then it was, hey, I've done this. This is what I think is right. This is how we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's gradually
He tried to hold their hand along the way.
shifted, but it's always been the case.
Mm-hmm. There is some more Coach Rhule stuff I want to get into.
Yeah, there's plenty.
There was one thing that everybody's kind of held on to that I don't even know is that important of a thing that he said, but we'll get into that and a bit more.
What?
You'll know when I say it.
Okay. So you're not. That's fine.
We'll tease it a little bit.
Yeah, you're teasing me. That's fine. I like that.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Live. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We're talking about some great coaching jobs, and there's a lot of commonalities between great coaches and great drivers. They make adjustments. They make the right calls, and the right call when you're driving is to not be distracted. Put the phone down. You can wait till you get there. Just park in the parking lot when you get there. Have your French fries, whatever, but don't be distracted while you're driving. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. The French fries part was me. The rest was NDOT.
You're a fry guy?
Oh, yeah, I like French fries.
Big fry guy?
Yeah, it's got to be the right fries. I'm not trying to eat any steak fries or anything, you know. Not a steak fry guy.
I was talking to my man John last night about fast food places. Amber's hubby.
Yeah.
And he told me that, so I think we are missing something when it comes to that one fast food place that I said I've never been to.
Okay.
He said they have good fish that's just the meal too.
Oh. I think they do have good fish. I've been told this.
Well, they ain't Hurrdat Sports Bar.
No, it's not.
Don't think that's not what I'm eating.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can come hang out with us over at the watch party.
I hope everybody does.
I know, it'll be fun.
And there's plenty of room for me to hide too if I need to.
You can go back in Bill's corner in his booth in the corner and kind of like.
Is that what we're calling that?
Yeah, that's Bill's booth.
Bill's booth.
That's why the Scorpion's back there.
No, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Bill's booth back in the corner. So
Scorpion, is that people's go-to when they don't want people around?
No, he's got the tattoo.
Yeah,
so
I know, because I just think Abdul, when he didn't want people loitering in his dorm room, he had a black scorpion.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if that's if that's a common deal.
Well, he also had a snake too, so it's like enter at your own peril.
It was like enter in the terrarium.
Yeah. That's Abdul. Welcome to the jungle.
That's but no, we that clip from Coach Rhule there. That's the one I was talking about that everybody was kind of in a tizzy about. Do you know why?
It's okay. So you have to be more specific. Is it how people receive it, or how what he said?
So it's the way people receive something he specifically said.
That he can't be a good quarterback at 240?
That's it. People lost their minds about that.
Okay, but why?
Well,
color me interested now. Listen, I gotta face you now.
Yeah, we'll do. All right.
What happened?
So I think the implication was, and I don't know that, because Dylan's what, 6'3"?
Mm-hmm.
Like a full 6'3".
I just saw him Saturday at State.
I think people aren't aware of how much people weigh necessarily, especially when they're athletes. Like, I don't know that because it seemed like yesterday people thought 240 was this enormous number.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, Is it more than he probably wants to play at? Yes. That's what Coach Rhule was saying.
Okay.
I think people thought, A, that he's currently at 240 pounds. I don't know if that's the case or not. And B, that 240 was putting him in like Jared Lorenzen territory. That's how it came off to a lot of people I was reading and listening to and seeing on Twitter yesterday.
Okay.
And I think that kind of a lot of people lost almost everything else he said because they thought that Dylan Raiola was going to turn into the hefty lefty.
Huh. That's not what I got at all.
Really?
Well, what have I been talking about?
You tell him he needs to be a little bit better.
This
shape.
is like 2 months old now, right?
Longer than that. You've been saying that since the end of the season. So we're
Okay.
like 4 months in at this point.
Okay.
You've been talking about, hey, he needs to be in elite level fitness. He needs to have his body right so that he can be a little bit more mobile, move a little bit better in the pocket, a little more fleet of foot, and so that he can take off about twice a game and burn defenses.
And you know what? You know what, though?
That's entirely demoralizing.
Let me be 100% transparent because I do remember those segments that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody tweeted at me and they said, you realize people are going to take this as Dylan doesn't work hard.
Yes, and we pushed back on that.
And I said, and I think I came back the next day and I told you, and I was like, if people take it like that, they didn't listen to the segment.
No, but anytime you talk about a guy's weight and needing to get his
But
weight
I
right,
remember when we clipped it and we sent it out,
mm-hmm.
I get where if you didn't listen to the segment,
the whole thing, right?
That's where people,
that's
probably Austin's doing.
He's a pot stirrer.
Oh, AJ.
He's in there just stirring that thing up. That thing wet.
he was gonna drum something up the other day at Girls State, and it was so outrageous. I was like, he's kind of laughing. He goes, "I'm gonna do," and I can't remember the exact particulars. And I go, he was so excited about it, like it was gonna get the outcome he wanted.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll do it. I'm in."
Yeah.
I don't even really remember what it was. It was just how he sold it to me.
Yeah.
I was like,
he's enthusiastic.
And I think it got me.
Yeah.
I think it got me because I go, oh, hey, whatever, man, I'm in.
There's a little
and he went to sit down, or no, he was running around. He's
all over the place.
Yeah, that dude was doing some work. And then after he was gone for about 3 minutes, I was like, wait,
what did I just agree to?
Is he going to get over on me again? That's what I was thinking in my head. But that wasn't my point.
No, I know.
My point was you don't have to, because what do you hear, right? The pictures will come out on social media, or he'll be somewhere, and what will people say? Oh man, need to be working out, or how can he always be at this place, or he goes to too many games, or he does this, or he does that. And not that you have to listen to criticisms, because people just bitch to be bitching anyway, right? But my point was, and I said this real time, you have these natural leadership traits. Like I think people want to be around you. I think you have this natural ability to lead. I called it charisma. You're already talented. If you add this to your regiment, it's what all the great ones do, right? Whether it was Brady, Aaron Rodgers was known for being very disciplined in his regimen. I'm missing another good one that comes to mind that's historically famous for how he takes care of his body. But anyway, I'm like, can you imagine the power that comes with that? Because I just kept hearing, Coach Rhule would say, he used to defend it by saying, but he's also the first one at the workout facility, or he's also the first one to do this, or when I went to my office.
Well, you heard somebody last week.
He was in the. Yeah, it was.
Kel Short said it last week.
He was pissed that
Dylan beat him there.
Yeah, that Dylan beat him there.
So I don't think it's a work ethic issue.
No, and that was never my point.
Right. Yeah, I know.
The point is when you do that and your players can see, and they see the natural byproduct.
Yeah.
There's just way more power in it. And the other thing is Coach Rhule got specific with what he wanted. And let's not act like we didn't all think the same thing about scrambling.
I wish you would take off a little bit more.
Yeah.
Look at that lane. Go.
Or, hey, get down, slide. Know when to slide. Have confidence because of.
Look a little more athletic when you're sliding.
Have confidence because of how you feel about yourself, that you can be more. You can do more of the dictating. Because we've seen half-hearted slides hurt guys.
Yep.
or sliding too early or whatever it is, right? So I think that's all part of it. I don't think
that's how people took it.
I
think when you throw a number out there, people are going to take it a certain way. And I know what you meant, and I think I know what Coach Rhule meant, because I think it's basically the same thing.
It's exactly the same
right?
thing.
But here's the thing when you throw out a number with a guy's weight, is people will assume, if he was working hard enough, he'd be at the number he's supposed to be. And let's be honest here, we don't know.
See, you know what bothers me about that?
Yeah.
Because you're probably I think
that's how most people take it.
95% chance you're right?
Yeah.
You know what bothers me about that?
What's that?
I hate when we even speculate over specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he can't say it, like it's much ado about nothing.
And do we actually know that 240 is the current number, or is that where he was and now he's come down a little bit? We don't know. We don't know.
I'm not saying who cares, but what if he'd have said 234? Or what if he'd have said 246?
Yeah, what if he said 250?
What if he'd have said 228?
We would have assumed
it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Because he's using it in a context to buoy what he wants the results to be after he says it.
This is
so why do I don't
this goes back to and this is I'm crapping on myself here a little bit. This goes back to the Sam Hoiberg 21 minutes thing. When you put a specific number on it, it's really easy to get in the weeds. It is. If our guy Logan, I think it was, had just been like, hey, like when Sam Hoiberg
I hope
played,
Logan is okay, by the way, because you weren't very nice to him, and I get it since basketball kind of hit the skids. He's been quiet,
yeah.
but
well, I mean the Hoiberg numbers didn't hold up really after the.
I hope you didn't deter him.
I don't think so. I think we exchanged a little bit and we were cool.
I like Logan.
But if he had just said, hey, when Sam Hoiberg plays more, I think they're better, I wouldn't have said anything except for, yeah, I think you're probably right. Like, it's a better team when he plays a little bit more. And I was like, maybe matchup dependent, but for the most part, you're right. But because when you put a specific number on it, and again, that's the difference between saying, hey, I would really love it if Dylan gets himself in elite level fitness, which is what you said, versus, he can't be a great quarterback at 240 pounds, right? That's the difference. No, and I get it's the same thing. I understand it's the same thing. But it hits our ears differently when you put a number on it. It just does. That's human nature.
You know what I've got to get over?
What's that?
If somebody's kind of being just like their true, authentic self and they're communicating with you, and you get the chance to ask follow-up questions, and it's out there in like the ether, I no longer feel responsible for how you internalize the information.
Yeah.
I don't. If you want clarity, ask me.
Sure.
And if you don't, and you take it and run with it or do whatever, that's not on me.
And we had,
that's not on me.
Clarifying conversations about what you meant.
You know what I mean?
Elite level fitness.
Like that,
there were not really clarifying questions about.
I just keep telling you, I just think people can make you dumber, and the more time you spend on that negative energy, it's just draining, man.
Yeah.
You just got to protect your space. The point that he was trying to make, and I got it about Logan. Now, you wanted to hear it a certain way, but I wasn't going to get in the weeds over that.
Yeah.
You wanted him to say, well, he should have said it like this, 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 and this. And there are times when we heed a certain call. No, there are times where sentence structure and syntax, it absolutely matters, right? Where if I say...
So you know what bothered me about the Logan thing? Is it felt like he picked an arbitrary number to prove his point.
Yeah, because you're kind of combative by nature.
Yeah.
I think his general point was, and you knew what his general point was. The more Hoiberg plays, the better the team does.
Yeah. And if he'd said it like that, I'd be fine.
I'm not a pound of flesh guy.
Yeah.
So that doesn't resonate with me, but I'm not telling you I don't understand it. I do.
Like, at a certain point, I need somebody else to get it right, though, too. Like, because you always tell me, hey, don't let people off the hook. Don't let people off the hook.
No, for like miring, that's different, though. What you can't say.
That feels the same to me.
You can't just, well, that's just how fans are, or, well, that's just how Shane is. Well, that may be true.
So I think the difference here is you're a benefit of the doubt guy. When you hear Logan say that, or you hear, and I think we're right.
No, I'm a eat the meat, spit out the bones guy.
Right.
That's me.
But part of
what's the gist of what he's trying to say?
Part of that becomes a benefit of the doubt guy, because you're assuming the best out of Logan, and you're probably right in that situation.
Listen,
you probably are right in that situation.
Listen, if my behavior's been poor, right, and somebody's getting into me about my poor behavior, and they say, it's like 9:30, man, and you X, Y, and Z, and they talk for another 3 minutes. Do you know what I'm not going to say?
It's actually 9:27.
Well, it was 10. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But there are people that, that's what they do, right? Because they listen to respond as opposed to.
Well, so here's part of my problem though, because even if even if I'm trying to listen to comprehend, here's part of my problem is if I'm trying to get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, I either need to change my behavior or we're trying to figure out a solution to a problem, then I need you to get the variables right. That matters to me. So now I don't know if that's a pound of flesh or not, but I'm going to have a hard time. Like, let's get the variables right, because then I would feel like we've got a better chance of getting the solution right.
So what if Rhule would have said 227?
Then I think right now he's at 227. I wouldn't have a big problem. I don't have a problem anyway.
No, you're missing the point though.
Yeah.
He says, I don't know if he can be a good quarterback at 6'3", 227.
I might think he needs to put on a little weight.
My point is, it's like you don't know. We don't know
what he means.
Yeah. Except for he's saying, the point is, whatever the number is, we need to do something different so we can be in this position.
What if he said?
I don't know why we're stuck on the number.
What if he said Ja'Cory Barney can't be a great wide receiver at 155?
You know this is a real thing, right? Like
with Barney, or just in general?
The weight thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
I told you the stories about Jalen Lloyd in haggling over 6 pounds.
Yeah. Hey, can I play at
178 as opposed to 184?
Yeah. Or you talked about Tommy Hill, be like, hey, we're good at 204, we're bad at 210, or whatever. 201
was your max.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're up to 212 now. We're kind of in the danger zone.
And everybody's been there.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's cool, man. I get it though. I didn't see it.
I think that's based on what my being like hearing things on other shows and being online. It seemed like that kind of carried the day. There was a lot of Ozempic jokes yesterday.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're doing that?
People are mean.
People can be mean.
And angry.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Welcome back. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you.
Well, you already got me thinking all morning. What's up?
Well, so I think you would have a better perspective on this than I would, just based on your life experiences. Okay.
Oh boy.
So
can't be divorced because we both got that.
I'll say we're on the same page there. No, it's about being a student athlete in college.
Okay.
Technically, we both were, but obviously at very different levels.
Okay.
And
that's different now. It's a lot less for them.
What do you mean in terms of workload?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's actually good. So, I think there's this when Coach Rhule says a number with Dylan's weight or whatever, right? I think there's this perception that he just doesn't work hard enough to be at the proper weight.
Okay.
And I think part of that's fed into by how present he is in the community, which, by the way, if they'd won 9 games last year and he weighed 210 pounds or whatever number we think is appropriate, we would love that. Like, let's not forget, we would love our quarterback to be as active in the community as he is. Anyway, just as a side note, what is the capacity on any given day of the amount of work you would have to do? Because most of these guys' classes are online. They structure it that way so they've got a lot of free time.
Although they have a coach now. I don't know if I would agree with that.
Okay, because that's how it's been in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that they've really transitioned and why they wanted the academics center so close to the facility is coach wants them in class.
Okay.
And so that was some of the give and take between he and Dennis LeBlanc. And so I don't know. I won't speak as though.
Fair.
I think they're in class.
So let's call it 3 hours of class a day.
Let's say 6 minimum.
In the classroom?
Yeah. No, 3. You're right, 3.
Yeah. I'm talking about in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 a day. That gives you 3 hours. How long are we talking about for workouts a day? About 2 physical workouts? Like weight room?
I'd say.
Not on field or anything like that, just weight room.
I'd say an hour 10 maybe.
Okay, so we're at, call it 4.5.
Okay.
On-field work. What are we talking? Another hour and a half?
Yeah.
So we're at 6 hours.
And meetings are at 6.
So how long are meetings?
It just depends.
Are we talking 2 or are we talking 4?
Could be
Average.
Could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour.
Let's call it an hour.
Okay.
Okay? We're at 7 hours total.
Mhm.
Let's go to film work. He's doing independent film work, which I think is the thing that everybody knows Dylan does a ton of, right? How much are we talking a day?
Well, they log it on your iPad, so I would say if you're good, it's minimum 2.
Okay. So we're at 9 total hours.
Yeah.
9 hours. That's a regular ass work day, right? For most people. 8 to 5, that's 9 hours, right? After work, do you have time to go to a basketball game? Do you have time to go to a Supernovas game?
If you want to.
Do you have time to go to... So what are we talking about?
I don't know. I was wondering where you were going with this.
Do we think he's like... There's only so much capacity. If you're doing this every day, it's not like he's working out for 16 hours a day.
Yeah, I'll give you – you want a real-life example?
Yeah.
I'll give you a real-life example. I called Caleb yesterday at, I don't know, 11:30 maybe. I was just going to tell him about Jeff and because they've been good family friends. So he sent me right to voicemail and says, can I call you later? Sure, I assume you're probably doing something. I just was trying to whatever. So he called me back about 2:15. And I was like, man, like you sound like trash. Like, what's going on? He's like, man, I'm tired. I need a nap. I was like, what's up? And he goes, man, you got to get up at like 4:30 if you want to be ahead of the game because of how the schedule starts. And I was just thinking to myself, well, you still have to go back and have meetings later on. I don't know what you've done during the course of the day. I didn't get into the specifics. I just know that he said he had to be up at 4:30 and wanted a nap at 2:30. So whatever that is, that's the day.
Yeah.
And that's without practice or being in season. So and he's got to go back and do something at night too. So that's about as loose a framework as I know. But we were already at the
9 hours.
9 hour mark.
Yeah. Like I think that's a reasonable guesstimation of what
I know he has special team. They have meetings. They're in meetings at 6.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And it's commitment week too, so it's a lot it's more.
It's a little heavier than normal.
It's team commitment week.
But I mean there's gonna be weeks in the off season where it's a little less than that. There's gonna be weeks like this where it's a little bit more. Obviously, once you get into spring practice, you're adding a couple hours there as well.
Yeah.
But my point is, people go, oh, well, he's out and about. He must not be working out and whatever. And it's like, there's only so much you can do. Like there is a capacity where it no longer is beneficial.
And if it's a Saturday or a Sunday, which it often is, or a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, he's a good student.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What are we doing?
Like
I don't think it's not a work ethic issue. That's my point.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
I think a lot of people see him out and they're like, he should be in the gym.
Too many basketball games, too many. I know most people. I think you're right though. Like if they were winning, people would think it's pretty cool that he was out in the community.
They would love it.
Yeah.
You know how much people loved it when he was out in the community before he started? Before the season started?
That's a good point.
When they win 9 games next year, they're going to be thrilled to death to see him at a Supernovas game. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Brian Christopherson coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
I think Keith Williams has done a phenomenal job for us. Keith has, continued to rise in the organization, and really, Pat's weakness will be the recruitment piece. You don't really recruit in the NFL, but Keith, Troy Vincent, Avery Gossett, I think those people have done a fantastic job. And, I think Sean Patton's done really a phenomenal job in the 3 years. We've had top 25 classes. We had a top 10 portal class, and this was kind of precipitated by him kind of wanting to move into a different space, wanting really to stay more in player finance, wanting to be more in analytics, and a commitment by us just to kind of look at personnel departments and recruiting departments and try to take it to a whole other level, which I think you're seeing across the board in college football. So Pat seemed to be the right fit. We're lucky to get him. He left a great job in New England. Very grateful to the people in New England to let him come, and we're excited to have him.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Brian Christopherson, Husker247, BC. What's going on, bud?
Oh, not much. How are you guys?
Hi, B. How are things?
Oh, pretty swell. How about you?
Good. We're just parsing through all the information. I've joked with you about this in the past because I don't think we're super used to it, but we got it again yesterday, and then all of a sudden the content spiraled, and I'm curious, is it that we're not used to? Maybe it's just kind of the day and age. I'll listen to any response because I believe you're extremely bright. How come when guys are pretty forthright and pretty honest with the information that they're telling us, we still try to like read between the lines as though they're saying something else? Like, is that just natural human behavior, or like why do you think we try to do more with what was said than what was actually said?
I don't know for sure. I guess I think with human nature, there is that.
Do you agree, first of all? Because maybe it's just me.
On our message board yesterday, I didn't see too much where I thought stuff was taken out of context. So I don't know what like the percentage is. I heard you guys in the first hour, and I know Rhule had the quote where he was talking pretty fully about Dylan Rhule and various things he can do, and he mentioned a specific weight he doesn't want him to play at, but I didn't necessarily take that, nor do I hope a high percentage didn't take that was definitely the weight, and also to make a big thing of it. So if that was something that people locked in on, I don't quite understand that one. I don't know if there were other areas where that happened. I think it's just that's one of Dylan's missions this offseason is be that guy who can scramble a little bit more, be nimble in the pocket. And he was just stressing that point about that's ongoing as you work hard at 6 a.m. every morning. And it sounds like that's what he does. So if people don't think that guy isn't getting after it, they're also not paying attention to some of the stuff that Rhule has said about his QB, because he's like one of the first guys in the building.
Yeah, BC, it is kind of funny that we want to take a number like 240 and take that as gospel truth. But as you're saying, we've heard, To Kill Shorts talk about what time Dylan gets there and beats him to the weight room. We've heard Rhule on McAfee and other programs talk about the work ethic of his quarterback. And while we take the 240 for gospel truth, we tend to not take the rest of it. Like,
I wonder if it's in response to criticisms they've heard to protect their quarterback.
It could be. Also, this could be out in left field, but remember the press conference a couple months ago where Rhule was saying, "Don't believe everything you read," and he used the example about it was like a weird like AI type story, I think, about like his wife like maybe being pregnant. He used the example, and she's not, and people just ran with it and would go up to him every day and say congratulations and stuff like that. And there's this weird thing going on now, like it's on Facebook and stuff like this, where certain people there's information that's coming in that the stories aren't even real, that have to do with Husker football. And I actually do think there's I hope it's a small percentage, but I do think there is a small percentage of the fan base where sometimes I'll hear someone bring up a particular subject, like, oh, what's going on over there with this? And it's not even a real thing. And so I'll double down on what he said a couple months ago, and that they can do the same with us. I mean, be careful about what you read, check it out, think for yourself on, on that. Does that make sense? Or am I parsing through this right? Or maybe I'll listen to the whole thing and get the full context. So I hope I'm trusted with what we put out and stuff like that. But I do hope people, pay attention and think about, like, am I just taking what someone said over here and now acting like that's what happened without even thinking for myself or looking at it? I hope that's not going on.
BC, when you're talking about kind of an engagement and the off season, and I mean, I heard the off season question, and I also heard his Coach Rhule's non-response to that. Do you think is your board or your people, are we played out with Nebraska information, or are there like these little hot button things? Like obviously this has gotten some run that the fan base really cares about. How do your people buoy the actual results on the field versus having real-time information in terms of their care meter?
Yeah, I think they still want the information, but then there's sometimes the response, and I understand this too, to say, I'm tired of it. Like I've all, there's kind of this trigger. I don't know if it's specific stories, but something that makes them say, yeah, I heard that last year. I heard that the last, 10 years, whatever. And so, yeah, it is an interesting balance right now. I think it feels like it's sort of been a long breather between the calendar has changed, where there's this time period between December now where there's this rush of information with the portal and early signing day and all that. And you used to have pretty good filler with that February signing day, and that's gone now. And so now you have like 3 to 4 months before spring ball where you kind of, people are, I think, tapping their toes a little bit, and you fill the time with your own thoughts sometimes. And there's sort of a search for information, but also like there's only so much info out there. Like the guys haven't even started spring ball yet. And so I do think it's a tricky time where sometimes, because not a lot's happening that we can actually see and grab, we kind of fill the air with our own thoughts in certain cases, or people do. And so that's probably where we're at. I don't know how you move around that. That's why I was happy when I heard Rhule the other day say, like, he likes spring ball. Like I hope that we don't ever eliminate spring ball, because I actually like that there's actually some sense of football going on during that month, and we're getting some of those development stories. I think it's good for the players too, but I also think it's actually good for the fan base, as opposed to sitting around for 6 months with nothing.
BC, through all these comments and a lot of the conversations we've heard over the last, couple months, I guess, as Nebraska's filling coaching staff out and front office positions, I guess is what we'll call them, and all these other things. It seems like there's been Nebraska fans, it seems like, have been clamoring for a really long time for the program to act like a big boy program, right? And it seems like now that Coach Rhule is operating and writing checks like a big boy program, that there seems to be a little bit of discomfort with it as well. Do you sense that tension at all? And if so, where do you think that comes from?
Maybe a little bit, but if there is, they have to get over it. That I agree with Rhule that I think Nebraska is as well positioned. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I do think they're well positioned to potentially come out of this shaky time in college sports, if we want to call it shaky, whatever you want to say it is, where it feels like the ground's sort of moving. You heard Rhule the other day compare it to like his first year in Carolina in 2020, with the COVID, and you have a plan for 3 to 4 months, and then you get a memo from the office. You got to switch gears. And one of the reasons I give Nebraska a real fighting shot here is because I think Rhule has kind of been through this before. And so I think that aids him. And I also, I say this all the time, but it's almost the most central thing to me is you've got to have someone in that chair who's like, okay, this is where it's changing. I'll change with it. And I can develop and I can tweak my game a little bit. I don't tweak my principles. Like, they're doing most of the stuff behind the scenes. It sounds like very much the same and are going to stick with that. But these areas, outside with rev sharing and everything that's coming, I think they have their eye on the prize, and there's a thought that Nebraska can come out of this and be one of the elite athletic departments, as he said the other day. So where other people are seeing kind of chaos and some of the troubles, which I understand that, at least you have to have people in leadership who see possibility. And I do think they have some of that over there.
All right, this is where I need you to sit me down. BC, we just cracked open some Canada Dry ginger. Well, you can have your coffee in your giant mug. I'm going to have a ginger ale here.
I only have one mug this week, too, by the way. I had 2 coffee mugs last week, and you guys gave me crap.
So these interesting schools of thought where with more people and departments and overseeing specifics, that there's this evolution of the CEO, right? That's the real thing. But I think the more that this happens, or the more people that do this, the more hands-on he can be with what he wants to be hands-on with.
Exactly.
Is that okay? So I think he actually is gaining more control than less, as I look at this from the outside in.
Yeah, I think so too. Now I think there's certain things that are coming up where you do have to, the football coach, it's not all football, and that's where it's very valuable to have like Phil Snow and Dana Holgerson and John Butler have coached a while. But I think you're onto something with all this other stuff. If you have a Pat Stewart who you really trust, as you put together your evaluations, and you have Sean Patton and Haven Fields and these guys that you really believe in, and like they can get that stuff down to the penny. I'm in on the meetings. I know what's going on, but I know over there they're doing what they're supposed to do. That allows me to accentuate my strengths as a coach and overseer of this. And I think that could definitely take shape. And I know he joked about, like, Phil Snow joking about, like, the other day they were out there for a mat drill and there's like 90 staffers like on the field. And I'm sure it's like humorous. Like, if you're Phil Snow or somebody and you used to have like 8 to 12 people. But take Dane Key's comments the other day. This is kind of veering a little bit, but he was being asked about Dikeel Shorts. And he mentioned like Andrew Verbois is on staff also, like coaching as with receivers at Nebraska, and like helps him with his change of direction. And Dikeel helps me with that. And I was thinking, like, man, even that one position, he's got 2 guys where he knows that can accent certain parts of his game, and that's just one spot. So I think, yeah, the more and more there's people that you really trust in that, it helps Rhule or anybody to really lock in on certain things that he needs to on a given day.
So, it's kind of funny, BC. We talk about how large these coaching staffs are and how large the administrative staff is and everything like this. And I always go to the NFL, right? And it's funny to me because you're talking about literally half the size of the roster with an NFL team. And the average number last year for coaches on an NFL team was 23.
Okay.
Just coaches, not front office staff at all. And we're kind of losing our minds about however many, I don't know what the number is for Nebraska right now, But however many coaches are at Nebraska right now managing twice as many guys, we're like, that's the standard operating procedure in the NFL is to have, I mean, it's almost a 1-to-2 ratio of coaches to guys on the active roster. And we're not talking about 50 coaches here at Nebraska. And we're not even talking about front office staff yet here with the NFL. Like it's just sort of, it's a funny narrative to me. And it is funny to see a bunch more guys out there when you're used to.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a question in there. I find it kind of amusing when we're like, oh, it's going to an NFL model. It's going to an NFL model. And then we see more coaches. We're like, whoa, too many cooks in the kitchen.
He was clear that it's vastly different.
He is in terms of like the execution, but in terms of just like the numbers.
Yeah.
It just kind of, it blows my mind that we are having a hard time wrapping our mind around the number of coaches.
Yeah, with all these topics we chase around, it comes down to if they win a few more games this fall. I do think that takes care of some of that. I just think there's sort of that pent up anxiousness that comes, and I understand it. We've been through that. With like wanting to see it. Okay, make that move now. Get into that elite circle or get close to it or right on the fringe of it this year. And so I do think there's that opportunity, and there's that word I'd use to do that in 2025. And we'll see how people respond then. And like, get us back in the fall about talking about even when the AP rankings come out on a Sunday, Nebraska's 15th and you think they should be 12th. Like those are the sort of silly conversations I want to get into, and hope that this team and what they're working at right now behind the scenes can help them get there.
BC, when you hear Coach Rhule talk and the staff, and last week and the 2 weeks before that, as they were kind of rolling out the new staff, one of the prevailing themes that I heard was like teaching and development, right? Teaching and development and teaching and development. And almost everybody was kind of echoing the same sentiments. It seems like the other thing that's going with that is kind of this whole head down, just play football thing where, just get better. How many times have we heard just get better in probably the last 3 or 4 weeks from this staff? Do you think, and maybe quietly isn't the way that they're doing it, but that has now become the focus of next leveling this roster where you can just be more mature and focus on getting better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just be a pro. And a couple of guys said that the other day, and maybe they have different circumstances, the guys who were speaking yesterday, than some of the others because they're sort of on a 1-year mission. But I think they can set a tone in part because of that. Like a guy like Dane Key or Dasan McCullough and Watson Trent. You heard McCullough talk about how like they send text message back and talk to each other about let's go after this and let's attack this like we're pros, every day. And that can filter down too. And I think you've got some young guys that have that mindset as well. And then they have to, again, the word is opportunity. You see it like on the defensive line. Like, there's questions to be answered there. As you heard Rhule the other day, like Ty Robinson was a cheat code, and you can't take for granted what Nash and those guys meant, MJ Sherman. And so if I'm Riley Van Poppel, if I'm Cam Lenhart, I hear that, I know that, and that fires me up to do exactly what you're saying, Damon, and just like, let's get better today because my chance is right there to grab. It's all on me. There's guys in the secondary who can do the same thing. I know there's a lot of veterans returning back there. I think that's going to be a really heated competition. I think there's young guys chomping at the bit. So all across the board, O-line in this spring. I mean, there's 4 main guys out. There's a big chance for your Sam Sledge or Jason Chachok, guys like that to make your move, and so exactly like to take advantage of this day because they're watching everything and you've got a chance to be a big part of this team. And so I think that is a message that resonates.
It's interesting. Did the amount of guys not going through spring ball concern you at all, or just kind of the cost of doing business with being cautious?
It seemed slightly high to me compared to some years, but I wasn't sure because normally I don't know that we've ever had the head coach come in and just put the whole list out at the same time right before spring ball. And so what happens a lot of years is you might hear like 3 names here, and then on another Tuesday, a couple more names. And so you'll look over like in the practices where we'll have access, and there are, a dozen or more guys like in a yellow jersey. So I couldn't tell if it was maybe a little bit more, but I also understand the caution. You've got some veterans in there, obviously like Corcoran and Prohaska, who you're seeing how they come out of it. Carter Nelson with that hip procedure he had done, that's a big deal, that hopefully he hits the ground running like, in the summer with that. The one that interests me, I guess, was Jalen George. And I actually kind of wanted to ask a follow-up on him specifically, but didn't. Just because I thought he was a really interesting portal addition and could see how, like, for a guy like him or Jameer Khan, who came in also, it's got to really stink to not be out there and be on that list when you just got here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's precaution or, I would guess with some,
Probably a mixed
it's
bag.
probably a mixed bag,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, definitely.
And kind of having
versus active injuries.
Yeah. Some equity. But I think that's a good point where you said, sometimes we just get a few at a time.
Yeah.
He just gave us the whole laundry list because it didn't really move my needle a ton, except for the message after that from guys like Rocco was, hey man, it's not always just the 5 best. It's, the guys that
can be available.
Oh no, basically move the same. Like, kind of the whole one unit thing, which I thought was interesting, because that's a philosophy that I think a lot of times people don't subscribe to when they try to decide who's playing and who's not playing on the offensive line. But the other thing I thought was interesting, BC, is we've kind of penciled in Rocco to do X, Y, and Z, and we've thrown around numbers. But I thought it was interesting how he said when he left Notre Dame, the writing was on the wall. It was kind of, they had different thought processes, and apparently he may not have been in their plans long term. Did that change your expectation of what he means or what he has to do at the University of Nebraska, or what you're expecting him to do at Nebraska?
It just adds to the element of a guy who I think's got to be extremely motivated. Like McCullough and watching Trent, it's like, I know that I've played good football. I know it's out there, but there's more. And I just, I want someone that believes in me that I'm going to go get that now. I think it's a cool opportunity for him to be a leader in a way. But the other thing that I thought was important was when Rhule said, more or less, that he's a good listener. He's not like one of those guys who just rolls in and is like, I've been to a national championship and done this and that. I think he's good with the give and take with the guys, and it sounds like it's fit in really well from everything I've heard. So I think that was a big addition, not just because he's played a lot of football, but I think he's got the right mentality. I think they found guys, they did their research on guys who entered from the portal that can merge into this thing and get right after it, and want to lead by example, but also want to learn from others too that have been in this program, even if they're a few years younger. And I think that's a big thing.
And it's not coincidence, right? With the guys we get to hear at the podium, it just reiterates kind of my thought process that even through the portal, it is still about development.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing to me too, look
at McCullough's frame. I know you had to be floored, right? You're like, is this dude hoop?
Yeah.
And people are looking. It was just funny too, because in the offseason when he first said yes, we were like, oh man, maybe he could play on the third level. I'm like, third? I don't even know about the second.
They might be an edge rusher.
His frame is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He played at low 230s last year. Wants to play about 240. He said this season at that jack spot. I mean, all those guys got interesting stories and reasons to be determined. Besides, this is one of those make or break years when you have one season before you're going to the pros. And he's moved around a lot in his college career. I think he wants to have a home at a spot. I think they think he can be versatile, where he can stay out there. No matter the different schemes they put on people. So that one's interesting. I mean, Watson Trent is the same way. Like, there's a guy who played at a lower level that wants to show he's a Big Ten linebacker. Dane Key wants to, I think, prove like he's been in that, 600 yard, 700 yard category, knock that up a notch. All those guys have some fuel that should be good for their rooms. And I think too, like I said, that this staff thought long and hard about guys that are grateful to be here, guys that aren't just going to come in and be like, oh, this is the way I did it over here. They're going to listen and to hear them talk about the mat drills the other day had to be heartwarming to Husker fans. Just like, you have a guy who just came from a team that was in the national championship game at Spindler, and he's like, that thing was legit. Like, I haven't seen that. Key hadn't seen that at Kentucky, McCullough at Oklahoma. So if anyone doubts that thing is for real and a little old school and different than some places, they should have just listened to the three guys up at the podium.
That's our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247, BC. Great stuff as always. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.
Interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I have to save some of it because I know we got Mitch coming up.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Fudge.
Not till 9 o'clock there. Coming up next, though, we've got Andy Kendeigh, KETV.
A Kizzle.
See if he's. I imagine he's on his way down to Lincoln here. I would imagine.
Yeah, he's probably got to be there
because got some.
Hey, that's a doozy.
Got some boy state going on.
How about that for an opener?
I know it's making me mad. I'm gonna have to fight Rico. He's a he's a Bellevue West guy, so we're gonna come to blows. I think.
Oh, really?
We're gonna fist fight.
Why?
Because he's talking trash. Rico's wild out there. You gotta watch out.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get into his brain.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We're joined now.
Shane's just playing music.
You cool over there? You mixing? You having a flash?
So the DJ can't even spin anymore? Is that what you're saying?
Flashback to your wedding DJ days? What's going on over there, bud?
No, I'm just waiting for AK to get here.
Is he here yet?
He's here.
Well, then let's talk to our guy, Andy Kendeigh, KETV. What's going on, Andy?
What's up, fellas?
A to the K. What's up, buddy?
DB?
I feel like I just saw you. Oh wait, I did. It's not as much fun on Saturdays because you're like busy working. And I know you're working Wednesday through Friday, but at least you can sit down some on those days.
I tell you what, Friday was a blast. If you've ever sat down and watched basketball back to DB, I strongly recommend it. It's fantastic.
Hey, I watch a lot of hoops, AK. I'm your insight guy, man. I'm just trying to help you out.
It's so, I mean, you know the game, man, and it's interesting. And the girls' tournament was great. Don't get me wrong, but man, the boys' tournament is this not the most like wide open Class A bracket you've seen?
It is. Ravi's over here on pins and needles with his Millard North gear, and I was arguing. I wasn't arguing. I was debating with my son last night about a tough draw. Such a tough draw that Millard North got. That half the bracket, and I said this earlier, no disrespect to the other half of the bracket, but that half the bracket, man, they got to be looking around like, really, guys? Like, what gives?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan.
It's dicey over there.
Well, yeah, the Millard North playing Bellevue West is that like it's like an annual tradition now.
Except it's usually in the semis or finals.
I'll say we're a couple days early.
Exactly. And then on the other half of that, or on the other side of that bracket, whoever wins that game gets to face either Papio South or Papio. And Papio South comes in the top seed. And oh, by the way, I think Papio beat Papio South.
Yes. So there's three of those opening up where the team has lost to the other,
including Millard North, Bellevue West.
Yeah, West Side, Lincoln,
and
Southwest,
and West Side, who loses in the district final to Southwest. And how about Lincoln? Good for LPS. You know, I read in Steve's little preview today that this is the first LPS versus LPS game at state in like 22 years.
Yeah, since 03.
Yeah, that is nuts to think about. I mean, that's mind-boggling. You think you just stumble and back into a Lincoln Public Schools matchup, but no, I guess that's not the case.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense considering you had a drought of them even making the tournament for a while, much less getting two in. You know. Yeah,
and now you got three. So good for them. Good for the Lincoln schools. And I don't know, you know, the atmosphere's been great. The crowds were rock solid, and it's an interesting deal. BB, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the flipping of the B to an A? You know, A was usually the night games, and they flipped those this time around. I think it's actually kind of created a nice little atmosphere. I was cool with that.
I don't know if it helped the girls, but I do get the intent, right? Because they kind of quietly moved that A game to 1. But I think it will be something. I was surprised, AK, since you brought it up, that Milford and Lincoln Christian had because that was probably the biggest crowd, right?
Oh, no doubt.
That was a little surprising to me.
Well, I think that a couple of factors had to do with it. Lincoln Christian being obviously.
I get the Lincoln thing.
Yeah, and Milford being close, but I think the star power, and I think a lot of people were curious about that freshman for Milford, that Shauna Rautenberg, who's a future.
She's legit.
Yeah, she's a Husker volleyball, a target, I should say, for volleyball. And man, that girl, talking to the Milford coaches, they were saying that she could be a Division I basketball player should she chooses. But obviously volleyball is her sport, and the coaches were saying they had never seen somebody as athletic. One of the assistant coaches from Milford coached with Tom Verdi at Seward for years and years, and he was saying that he's never seen a big like Rottenberg that is as athletic as she was. And she's a 9th grade kid, and that girl. She's athletic. I mean, I
think girls, but it's in a good spot, isn't it?
That's where I was going.
It's in a good spot.
It's in a very good spot, and the quality of the game is improved immensely. Just in the last 5-10 years too. I mean, the talent level has just, in my opinion, has really skyrocketed. These kids are so talented.
I looked at the backcourt at Bellevue West, backcourt at West Side, outside of Kimura, Jenkins, and I mean, there's just a lot of good young players. Now, they didn't shoot it well.
I was going to say,
unless your last name is Dolliver, you didn't.
Right.
Well, I guess Gessert kind of got it going.
I think people are going to see the scores of the games and not immediately think about what you guys are saying, but it is true.
Yeah, I think it'll grow.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, and that was a big storyline that the kids were shooting poorly in terms of the Class A games on Friday. We saw But I was talking to Steve Clark, Westside coach, the other day.
Yeah, old Clarky.
Semifinal. Yeah, and I was just like asking about the lines on the floor and all this stuff, and he said it has more to do with the backdrops in terms of like kids in high school are so used to that close wall behind the basket, and then the depth when you get an open gym like that, it's really it's an adjustment period. Kids who haven't shot at a basket like that, it kind of takes you through a little adjustment. And don't forget that these kids are playing against teams that are pretty good defensively. So, I just think, they didn't shoot it all that great, but I think the level of talent on the girls' side has really improved. And I'll tell you what, in years to come, look out for Westside and Bellevue West. Those two teams are on the come, no question.
Yeah, let me ask you something real quick before we move over to the boys today and then Nebraska. Media availability yesterday. Try to go rapid fire here, AK. I get it with the Gessert twins, right? I mean, they were incredible. I looked at you a couple times. I'm like, yeah, most people don't shoot that shot. But how good is Lewis? Like, I love the old school knee pads. She's tough. For a guard, she was drilling these teams on offensive rebounds. She's way good. I'm not saying doesn't have to take a back seat to her brother, but man, just 1 year over from UTAN. I thought she was terrific.
Oh, she was fantastic. I talked to Kip before. Not Kip.
Kruger.
Kruger before at halftime, and talking about Lewis. We had, you give like 30 seconds before you hit the air, and I'm like, God, how about Lewis's intensity? And he kind of just chuckled. Like, she got called for a foul, and I thought she was going to rip the head off the ref with her eyes.
Yep.
And that's the type of spirit. I love that intensity of her, and she really, really, really brought it.
I wonder if she's tougher than Tyson.
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, her intensity really carried them at times because they needed it, especially in that semifinal. They were in a dog fight. in that Friday game.
AK, I want to switch over to Nebraska availability yesterday because Coach Rhule said something I thought was really interesting. I was kind of curious what your take on it was when talking about the scheduling and the 9 conference games versus going out and scheduling tough in the non-conference. And he said something that I was pretty pointed, I thought, but I also thought it was true, where he goes, hey, we can't have it both ways. We can't complain about not winning enough games, playing more conference games than everybody else, and then still want to go out and schedule these marquee non-conference games. How did you take that?
I wanted to take a victory lap, AK.
Yeah, I love the fact that Coach Rhule is so out there and will say what he feels. I applaud that. And you know what? He's right. He's right. You know, and honestly, until we have a consistent and some equity in terms of the scheduling model across conferences, absolutely, this is what you do. No question. You know, I don't have a problem with it. Would you like to see them play Tennessee? Sure, but save it for the bowl game, man. Just rack up some wins in the non-conference, in my opinion. You know, if you're not going to get anything for doing it, why do it? So, I understand the fans' frustration because they want to see those marquee matchups. But then again, don't you want to go to the best bowl possible? So let's win some games. And that's how I feel. And the fact that Coach Rhule has to say that, good for him, man. Good for him. I'm all for it.
Andy, do you think at all part of it is these labels that we have on conference versus non-conference? Because, like, the conference games that we were playing in the Big 8 are very different than the conference games we're playing now, where it's like, hey, you're going to play Iowa State, Kansas, like all these teams, Missouri, every year, whereas now it's like,
your 5, 6, or 7 game home slate in the Big Ten is significantly better than it ever was
and it's different
in the
every
Big 8.
year, right? It's like, hey, some years you're
Like,
getting
what
USC,
are we
some
talking
years you're
about?
getting Oregon, some years you get Penn State, some years you get Ohio State. Like, the non-con games are just conference games now.
No question. And honestly, you know, if you're going to take it a step further to talk about the NFL, yeah, these games, the difference is, you know, you kind of tune it up with these first 3 before you hit the conference. This is your preseason, except the preseason counts in college, right? So I don't have any issues with it. It's a different game. It's a different schedule than we were talking even 10 years ago, you know? So, yeah, I would say, you know, the fact that the Big Ten's so strong top to bottom, if you're playing a 12th place team, you better strap it on in the Big Ten, where in the old days you're playing, you know, you're not even playing the 12th, you know, the 14th place team, because there isn't such a thing. But if you're playing a bottom feeder in the Big 12 or the Big 8, that's almost a chalk win. That's like, you know, that's like playing a bowling game, you know, in the old days. So that's the way I feel. It's you know, if you're not going to get rewarded for playing some of these tough opponents in the preseason or the non-conference, then why would you do it? I am behind those comments, and I understand the frustration, but hey, the reality is, if you want to win as many games as possible, that's the way to do it.
Listen. You're much more diplomatic than me. I don't understand the frustration because if they win 9 games, nobody cares.
Everybody,
no, like I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I mean,
wasn't it interesting too
when you almost get beat at home by Wyoming and you win a national championship that year, and the toughest non-con game we played was, I don't know, at Lubbock. Like, nobody cared.
Right?
Do you know why they didn't care, AK?
Natty.
Do you know why they didn't care? Because we were winning.
Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just win games. Winning's a great deodorant. Nobody cares.
AK, appreciate the time. You heading down to Lincoln?
You betcha. You betcha.
What time you leaving?
Again this week. Well, no, I'm not going down today. I am going down on Friday. I'll be there all day. Are you going to be there in TV?
Yes, just save a seat. But you know me, once it gets dark out, I'm going home. I'm not going to be out at night. I'm a daytime guy.
All right. I'll save you a seat for Class A.
All right, buddy. To your left. I got to sit to your left.
Yeah.
I
got you.
All right. Andy Kendeigh, KETV.
That is who I sat with.
DB, the Gremlin, apparently can't be out after midnight.
And Jacob and Austin.
Well, of course.
Jacob was very stationary. Austin, every time he got up, I switched to the other side because I like that vantage point.
Can I say something real quick here?
Yeah.
So I just saw this on Twitter a couple minutes ago. Did not know we were going to go here. So going back to the Big 8 days and the free wins that we were talking about, Andy was talking about. So, 4 of the longest winning streaks of all time. Do you know who they were? 4 of them include Nebraska.
Colorado.
Iowa State.
Yeah.
Kansas.
Yeah.
Kansas State. Missouri. You had 4 freebies every year. Every single year.
I was there.
Every single year.
I get it.
Now you have to schedule those.
That's why it never made sense to
There's
me.
no more conference freebies. You have to go schedule them.
It never made sense to me
That's
to be mad.
4 a year. Those don't exist anymore.
Do you remember that meltdown? That
Yeah.
wasn't even a meltdown.
No.
Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
You cannot have it both ways.
Just go win 9 games.
Win.
Just go win 9 games.
Win.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we're presented by our friends over at Centris Federal Credit Union. They've got you covered no matter what you need. I talk about it all the time, but whatever you're looking for in a financial institution, whether it's just your regular run-of-the-mill checking and savings, whether you need that auto loan that we were talking about, whether you need home equity, you're buying your first home, your dream home, just need some renovations to make it the home you want to live in, Centris Federal Credit Union has you covered. Go check them out, centrisfcu.org, and talk to one of their experts. They can guide you through the process. If you're anything like me, you go into some of these situations, you've never done this before, you need a little guidance on how the process works. That's where Centris and their community helps you through it. centrisfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA. DB.
What's up?
The NFL has not gotten any less drunk in the last couple days.
Man. I kind of like it, though. That's why you can go first to worst.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
So I know this is a sensitive topic for you, but I've seen this kind of play out real time with another one of your teams.
Okay.
Acquiring somebody you don't particularly care for in Luka Doncic.
Yep.
Already had somebody you didn't particularly care for in LeBron James. Mm-hmm. Had somebody else you didn't particularly care for in Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen the internal struggle that you have when a team you like has players you don't. I went through it myself in the Jordan Poole Warriors era. Okay? How long would it take you to talk yourself into an Aaron Rodgers Steelers team? Because it feels like that's really on the table.
How long would it take me?
Yeah, like what's the process of you getting on board with that? Or would it just be a begrudging
an announcement?
As soon as he says it, you're like, let's go, baby.
Yeah. But let me tell you why.
Because he's pretty good.
Aaron Rodgers is different than Luka, and he's different than LeBron, and he's different than Jeff Kent, and he's different than Juan Uribe, and he's different than Shaquille O'Neal. He's different than any of these guys.
Okay, lay out the differences for me.
I've never, at no point before those guys got to the team that I cheered for, did I ever like him.
Because you used to like Rodgers.
I used to like Aaron Rodgers quite a bit.
Before he got a little wackadoodle.
Yeah. I used to like Aaron Rodgers quite a bit.
I did too, to be fair.
So it won't be that hard.
If we're having this conversation 3 years ago, and I've said this before, I wanted them to trade the number 3 pick that they took Trey Lance with for Aaron Rodgers.
And here's the other thing. He fits what I need for him to do in that offense. Just get rid of the ball and have a good pre-snap read.
Can you imagine him with DK and Pickens?
Well, and he gets Freiermuth to work the middle.
I mean, that's pretty advantageous.
Yeah. And I think after they sign Nick Chubb, I'll be happy with the two-headed monster too.
What's Pittsburgh's ceiling with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback?
I mean, their conference
is that a Super Bowl? Is that a Super Bowl contender?
Their conference caliber.
No,
I mean, let's. So here's the funny thing, because people will roll their eyes at that. Oh, here comes Steeler fan. But you got to remember, with 4 weeks to play, they were considered one of the best teams in the AFC.
They were, and they kind of fell in the tank a little bit. And a lot of that's Russell Wilson related.
Yeah, I mean, I watched on Christmas Day against the Chiefs. What were the Chiefs? A 6-point favorite? 5? I mean, it wasn't daunting. Now the game turned out to be that way.
Sure, but that's not how it was viewed.
So it's not like.
How many teams in the league do you think are better coached than the Steelers?
Better coached?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, so not very many.
Yeah.
How many teams in the league do you think have better culture than the Steelers?
Maybe none. Easy answer would be the Chiefs or the Lions.
1 or 2 tops.
But I don't think any.
Okay.
At
most 1 or 2.
Yeah. but I don't. Yeah.
So top 5 or 6 coach team, top 2 or 3 maybe best culture team.
Mhm.
Where do you like their roster outside of quarterback?
Now that's the problem. So it's probably a top 9 roster.
Top third of the league.
It's top third for sure.
Okay, so top third of the league roster.
Yeah, because 3 times 9 is 27. Yeah, it's top third.
Almost top quarter, or like
Yeah.
somewhere in there. Top 30% of the league.
Yeah.
So top 30% roster, top third roster, top 5 or 6 coaching,
Mhm.
top 2 or 3 culture, and you add in a competent quarterback. I don't think it's crazy to say that team's a Super Bowl contender.
It's not crazy. I don't really love that take yet. I need to see what they do in the secondary.
Fair. And there's so the thing that you probably argue against is there's a lot of teams to jump,
Right.
right? So you have Ravens in your own division.
Well, I'm trying to think who's not going to be better.
Right. The Bills probably going to be better.
Yeah. So the
Bills are
Bill,
doing work.
the Bills got a better player and save cap space.
Yeah, it pisses me off.
Bosa's better than Von Miller.
Yeah, I know.
And they saved $8.5 million.
Yeah, and the 49ers let their second leading sack guy go because they thought they were getting Bosa, and he goes, so I'm having a really good couple days here, DB.
Yeah, that was 1 year, 12. I asked you what Bosa would cost. Now we know.
Yeah, 1 year, 12.
12.6.
Yeah. Worth it?
Well, he's 30. Sure. Yeah, I would do that deal every day that ends in Y.
100%. He's 29 years old. He'll be 30 next year.
Yeah, good on Buffalo.
And you'll take your chances with the health.
Yeah, and he gets to play opposite Rousseau.
Yeah. You do that deal every day of the week.
Oh, for sure.
So Buffalo got better. I don't know if Baltimore's better or the same. I would say about the same.
They're about the same.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think D-Hop helps them a ton.
I don't either.
Are
you going to get the same year out of Derrick Henry that you got this year?
Man, your offensive line you're messing with a little.
Mhm.
I would say I think Cleveland's going to be better.
You think Cincinnati gets any better?
No, Cincinnati will be worse.
Yeah, that bums me out because I like Burrow. But
Kansas City has not had a great offseason.
Yeah, I think they're a little worse.
Maybe.
I think Kansas City's.
But their young guys get better.
Yeah, hopefully.
Chargers will be better.
Let's
Raiders,
call it a wash with the
Chargers
Chiefs.
are better. Raiders will be better. Denver will be better.
Yeah. So those are a bunch of teams in the neighborhood of Pittsburgh that have gotten better. Because I would say the only teams that I would look at clear cut, like let's assume Rodgers with the Steelers. The only teams I look at clear cut better than the Steelers would be Ravens, Bills, Chiefs in the AFC. Fair? Like just clear cut on a different level last year.
Yeah, I think you have to take a look at the Chargers.
Not last year. They weren't clear cut better than the Steelers.
No, but
last
I
year.
mean,
we're projecting this year now. But that's what I'm saying. So the Chargers are
anybody in the AFC East outside of the Bills
that was just better.
I mean, shoot, the Dolphins are going to be healthy, but they need Dolphins need a D lineman. They need a linebacker. They got to replace Holland.
I think the Dolphins are set to have a bad year. That's just me.
Although I do think Tyreek bounces back.
But my point is, so you've got 3 teams that were clearly better than Pittsburgh. Then you have a bunch of teams that were kind of in the same neighborhood. Chargers. I think the Raiders are going to kind of be jumping up. The Browns, if their quarterback situation is not a disaster, they'll be jumping up. Yeah. You got a lot of teams in that middle class.
You know who's interesting to me?
Who's that?
And I know they can't get out of their own way. And I'm going to take the bait.
Who?
I kind of like the Colts.
With Daniel Jones?
Yep.
It's better than Anthony Richardson.
I'm telling you right now. Because they were kind of close.
I actually think that's a pretty good roster.
Me too.
Like, I think it's a pretty good team. Because
I kind of like the Colts.
They were,
but I felt like I've said that 2 years in a row.
Well, you have,
and got toasted.
Well, so you've been right in terms of the roster. The problem is we were assuming you could get something of functionality out of Anthony Richardson, and that's just not the case. That's not who he is. I don't think. I didn't think that's who he was when he was at Florida. I didn't think that's who he was when they drafted him. I've never thought Anthony Richardson was that guy.
Yeah, so my man. So Amazing Daniel, who's as diehard as they come, he's not. He's not in on Rodgers. But I'm curious why he thinks it's bad for the team.
So my only concern would be with Rodgers, Pickens, and Metcalf. You got 3 knuckleheads.
Yeah,
and that's starting to be a lot.
I understand.
Now, if anybody's culture can withstand it, it is the Steelers.
He's done it before. I mean,
yeah, it's not like Big Ben was a model citizen at the beginning.
Oh, I'll give you the other 3 bad Bs.
Who?
Bell, Brown, and Bryant.
That's true.
Martavius Bryant is might be clinically.
Have some issues.
Yes.
Antonio Brown certainly is.
Well documented.
Yeah.
And Le'Veon Bell is trying to beat a $25 million civil suit over his cousin.
Yeah. I think people do not give enough credit to how dysfunctional those guys were outside of Pittsburgh. And Antonio Brown gets all the headlines. The rest of the guys do not get the run that they deserve for being dysfunctional.
So, I mean, yeah, I get it.
But that would be my only concern with this group is too many knuckleheads.
I just don't. Rodgers didn't strike me as the type of dude who his teammates didn't like, though.
No, it seems especially
he's just bad with the media.
Yeah.
He's not going to get to do that.
You know why?
He's just not.
You know why?
He didn't have a problem with his teammates. They all were hugging this dude the last game of the season on the bench.
He's not going to get talked to the media because Mike Tomlin's pressing.
I don't know.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're going to talk to Mitch Sherman from The Athletic coming up next. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports live, presented by Centrist Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We are just, digesting, computing, analyzing, the usual after a 40-minute talk with the old ball coach. How about that?
Yeah, that was longer than expected.
Yeah, a little different, wasn't it? I shouldn't be surprised, Mitch, because we know, whatever it is that he wants to get out, he's going to get out regardless of the line of questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you mix in a couple 6-minute answers to individual questions, you can get up to 40 real quick on the length of the press conference. But I think it got a little unwieldy for Keith Mann, not as far as the content, but in the length of time. Like they like to keep it on a tight schedule. And good thing they started at 10 a.m. They if this would have been a noon presser, I think there would have been some people sweating in the building about why Coach Rhule is spending that much time with the media.
It was giving me some Jim Valvano vibes where he's like, you think I give a damn what that little red light on that camera says? Like,
yeah.
Like he was going to do what he wanted to do. And I kind of want to start with the clip that we played with kind of the general manager deal. And
yeah,
he's so finite in details, right? And I think, Stewart kind of wanted to get closer to home, and there's lots of reasons and to take the job. But when you talk about the brain trust and the knowledge needed to move forward, he was so detailed on what he wanted him to do. It seems like the more people he brings in, Mitch, the more control he gains, which seems backwards to adding to your staff, right? Do you get that sense?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I think so. The control in the way that he wants to have control. Yes. I mean, if you're a head coach or a manager of an organization that just wants to make every decision and not be challenged, then no. But I think for Matt Rhule, like control, it's like there's two parts to the word control. Control is like having you being the only decider. No, but it's also like keeping things under control and having a smooth operations. The thing that he's done here. And this started with Dana Holgorsen, and then you had Phil Snow come on board. And remember, initially they both came on board in some role at the same time. Holgorsen, of course, was running the offense while Snow was still consulting, but now they're both huge pieces of the staff. And then I think with Mike Eckler, as we learned a little bit about more about their relationship, Rhule and Eckler's relationship in the Tuesday chat with the head coach, and now with Pat Stewart, what you're finding is 4 people who were not a part of this staff before November of 2024, all of whom are going to challenge Matt Rhule in his way of thinking in a way that probably didn't exist before that. It didn't exist for the first 21 or 22 games of Rhule's time at Nebraska. And in some way, yeah, that's about the head coach having more control because he's controlling the variables. And all of those guys are going to give him their opinion. Like nobody is going to be in that group is going to shy away from coming into his office or going up to him on the practice field or having a discussion that might not have been had for the majority of the first 2 seasons that Rhule was in charge of this program.
I agree with you. And I like the insight because I think you have some based on your guys' relationship too, where he strikes me as Coach Rhule strikes me as one of those people, Mitch, that the more smart people that he's around, the better he is because he's very good at processing quickly. He doesn't need to be the smartest guy in the room, but he's very good at adjusting to how he can figure out how to maneuver in the room. So I think the more data he gets and the more information he gets, it plays to his strengths if he can just if he trusts you enough where he can just receive what you're telling him. Like I think he'll actually be better.
Yeah, it's fair. I agree. I don't have a lot to add on top of that. I think what you said is right. I think that's part of the reason why this time of year, when he says, "Oh, this is my favorite time of year," and we didn't hear that yesterday, but we've heard it the past 2 years in the spring. I'm sure it'll come up when they get back from spring break and he gets the team out at practice. He loves this time of year because you can do that stuff, because you can take the information that you're gathering, whether you're gathering it on your own or now in the case of some of these new coaches, you're getting insight from them and you can process it. Like in the heat of the season, there's not as much time for that. You always, even if it's a bye week, the days are short until you have a game to play on the field. But this time of year allows for all kinds of opportunities to process and get better and take the information that you gather from your staff and improve your organization. So that to me that's like an explanation of why this time of year, which some people in football despise, is actually Matt Rhule's favorite period on the calendar.
Mitch, I'm curious. We've talked to a lot of people and heard a lot of people in our comments and things today. I'm curious for you, what moved the needle for you most yesterday?
There was more than one thing. I'll just give you two from Rhule. Him talking about Dylan and being willing to go where he did about his quarterback. Like, I don't think that was off the cuff. When Rhule said that he can't be a 240-pound quarterback and be effective, like that didn't just come out of the air. He didn't pull that one down. Like he knew he was going to say that going into the press conference. Like it was cool with Dylan's camp, I'm sure, because what the reaction to that's going to be. That's low-hanging fruit for like every other fan base that is a rival of Nebraska's. They're going to be throwing that back in his face, and so they want that. Like they want that motivation, like that stated goal, that something that's not vague to be out there. And I think it's fine, like as long as you approach it the right way. Like that one, and we could go more into that, but that one
I guarantee you Ravi's got a follow-up. Don't worry.
That one was notable. I thought his explanation about the interaction that he had with Mike Eckler, some of the interactions that he had with Mike Eckler were hilarious, like in a way that was not press conference funny, when he told the story about meeting Eck in the morning and Eck said, how are you? And Rhule said, good. And he said, we're not good. We're great around here. And Rhule was like, no, Mike, I'm from New York. Like I'm good. That was really funny. Like
I guarantee you that's verbatim.
Yeah, I really, really hope that actually happened and it wasn't just symbolic of their relationship. I assume it probably did. So that one, and I think that like sheds.
He's not going to be able to stand a T-shirt slogan guy. Like,
yeah,
I think that's why Eck, he better like the fact that he teaches, because that is, I mean, Eck talks almost too much for Rhule. He may be the antithesis of what he normally would gravitate towards, except for the fact he's a phenomenal teacher.
Yeah, well, he said that. He said that exact thing, and so I think that sheds some light on their relationship, which I think can be very good for both of them. And then the third one I'd say is when Dane Key talked about Holgorsen, and he said, if you don't want to be the guy, then just go ahead and stay at Kentucky. But if you want to be the guy, then come here. You have to really know the player that you're dealing with if you're going to say that. And you don't generally get to know the players that well when they're coming on portal visits. But Holgorsen tapped into the knowledge that he had with Key because of Da'Keel Shorts. Like there's a huge relationship, of course, between Holgorsen and Shorts, and then also between Shorts and Key. So he was able to take advantage of that. And Key, he knew when he said that, like that Key was going to be the type of guy who would be like, I want to be the guy. Like that stood out with him enough that 3 months later, Dane Key is still talking and still thinking about that. So that I think was really insightful into like who Dana Holgorsen is as not just as a coach, but as a communicator with his ability to motivate players.
Okay, Mitch, I want to go back to your first point here with the part with Dylan Rhule, because I agree with you that doesn't get said if it's not cool with his camp, if it's not been talked about with Dylan already. My question to you is, what did you think about the fact that he actually brought up a number? Because that seemed to sort of make people lose their minds yesterday. And I don't know how important that was in the general point, but it seems to be a point of fixation for the general public.
Well, first of all, it's only 10 pounds heavier than what Dylan's listed out on the roster. So it's not like it's a shock.
Like you said, 80, right?
What's that?
Like you said, 280. Right?
Well, if you had said 280, then you'd have known that it was like hyperbole, and then that would like have lost some of the impact. But the fact that he said 240 is like, oh, Dylan's 240. Okay, like, yeah, he should probably be playing at like 220, which is fine. Like, I don't have concerns about this because I've watched Dylan attack the quarterback position, like attack his learning of the quarterback position and his growth and development from the time that he was a high school freshman, and you've seen how dedicated and devoted he is to that. And so I have complete confidence that he's going to handle this situation with the same kind of dedication. Like, he's going to be fine. Like, if this is the biggest concern, which it probably isn't, but if this was the biggest concern, the biggest thing that he needed to fix going into his sophomore year, then like you ought to feel pretty good. Like, because he is dedicated. Like, Dylan wants to be an NFL quarterback. Like, not want. Like, he knows he's going to be an NFL quarterback in his mind. So like, he's not going to let something like this stand in his way. Like, yeah, he can get in better shape, and I think he will. But you have to remember, like, he's 19 and he's coming off of his freshman year of college, and he's got genetics to deal with when it comes to his body composition. His dad's offensive lineman, his uncle's an offensive lineman. Like, for some people it's just not as easy to like maintain 220 pounds if you're 6'3". So I'm totally fine with the fact that Rhule put it out there, and like I don't think it's cause for alarm. Like, I would be willing to bet that when camp opens in August, you're going to look at him and go, wow, he looks a lot better.
Listen, Mitch,
or looks good.
Some of us to maintain 220 pounds at 5'9". All right. So like, I get it. I've been there.
Mitch, let me ask you something. How did it land with you when asked about kind of the D line? And he kind of, he waxed poetic about Nash and Jamari and MJ and I. Was that? Did you look at that as a vote of confidence for the? You guys better understand kind of what we had a year ago. They're better than they were given credit for. Like, how did that little excerpt, which I thought was interesting, that he gave, he expounded, right? That's one of those 6-minute things. Mm-hmm. How'd that land with you?
Honestly, haven't thought that much about that yet until you brought that up. But because there was so much else from him and the players. But yeah, I think the latter of your two explanations, I think he was making a point about how good those players were. And he flat out said that about Ty Robinson, about how we didn't probably appreciate how good Ty Robinson was. And, some of that I think is just him wanting to promote them so that all of those guys get an opportunity at the next level. And some of it was like a word of warning. Like, don't expect Nebraska's D-line to come out against Cincinnati and look the same way that it did when it was clicking, when things were going well this last season. But I think if we talk to him more about the defensive line, and we talk to him more about the group that Braden and I think you have to put Phil Simpson with that group too, even though he's coaching the Jacks. Like, I just think there's going to be more, more carryover, more interaction between those two groups. Like, I don't think it's going to all look the same as a year ago, in part because of the personnel, in part because you have, and we'll see if these two guys mature to the point where they are your bookends in 2025. It might be 2026 with these two. Everybody wants Keona Davis and Williams Nwaneri to be ready in 2025 to just create havoc for Nebraska in the pass rush. And I'm sure they're bringing those guys along. I know they're bringing those guys along as fast as they can, but they're probably on like a little bit of a different time schedule than Elijah Judy and even Riley Van Poppel and some of the other pieces they have up front, Cam Lenhart. So they have a lot of good players at the front, and it may end up being a better collection of talent, like all the players in the program on the D line right now, than the four that you mentioned that are gone. But it's going to take time. They're not all there right now.
So, Mitch, I'm sure you've noticed being in a lot of these press conferences, it's when Rhule brings up a specific player's name, it tends to be for a purpose, right? Like, he doesn't typically answer a lot of questions about specific players. Even when he's asked, he tends to pivot a little bit and sort of give a more general answer. But sometimes he'll be asked kind of a more general question and he'll bring up specific guys, which is what I thought it was interesting when he brought up the guys on the defensive line yesterday, because he sort of went out of his way to say, hey, Cam Lenhart's ready. He said that one really fast. He said Riley Van Poppel's ready. Elijah Judy's ready. Keona Davis is ready. Like, when you hear that part of it, are you – because I thought when he was talking about the guys that are leaving, I thought he was just trying to get them drafted personally. Like, that's how I took it. But when he's talking about these guys, I'm wondering, okay, is he trying to let these guys know he thinks they're ready, or is he trying to let these guys know they need to be ready?
A little bit of both. They know they need to be ready. Like, I don't think you can be any of those. I maybe take Davis out of it because he's just a redshirt freshman, but the other guys have been in the program for multiple years, and they know that it's their time, that the players who were ahead of them last year have departed, and like they're at the top of the food chain. So I think those guys, they don't need to hear that from Matt Rhule, that they need to be ready. I think he's trying to do the kind of the whole thing that he does, where he sends a message to them a little bit through some of the stuff that he says publicly. Like, he puts it out there. Like, he's talked to these guys, I'm sure, about what's expected of them next season, or if he hasn't, he will be very soon. I'm sure he has, or he wouldn't have brought it up publicly. And it puts a little bit more urgency, a little more pressure on them, good pressure, if he says it the way that he did yesterday. So that's all it was to me.
What did you think of Rocco? I thought it was interesting that he talked about his departure at Notre Dame and kind of them having a different vision, which I think there's this assumption of Notre Dame and what he's supposed to be able to come in here and do. And we see, fictitious NIL numbers floated and stuff like that. Did that change your expectation level if you pit it against how Coach Rhule described what little he had seen of him since he'd been here? Because he didn't really gush as much as he said, hey, we've got another big guy, powerful guy that can move people. He was very general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It could be me, how I process information. What did you think, kind of hearing Rocco and then have Coach Rhule talk about him before that?
Yeah, I think I had something preconceived in my mind about Rocco and his departure from Notre Dame, in part because I've heard him do an interview where he talked about it, and it just sounded like there were competing philosophies, where he felt like the tide was shifting in favor of some younger players, and he just wasn't happy with the way that the outlook appeared for him to be able to use next season to get where he wants to get. So it was like, I see the writing on the wall. It's been great. I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to. So that didn't really change, because I thought what Rocco said about that kind of backed up what I already believed about it. As far as Rhule, I mean, we didn't hear Rhule really go deep on any of the transfers.
I don't think he's going to.
Yeah. Last year he kind of did a little bit on Jamal Banks at this time, and I don't think that impacted anything. Banks, I mean, his numbers were fine, but they probably weren't what a lot of people envisioned.
You know what I think?
Overall production.
You know what I think
What's
it
that?
is? I think it was his answer. I don't know who asked the question, but the off-season national championship thing.
Yeah.
And it was his response, non-response to that. You could tell he was pissed. But, and he said, but part of it was I don't want to put too much or say too much or expectation. Now that you mentioned Banks' name, I think that was part of the reason that we expected so much from Banks is how
he
was talked about in the
right. Single digit.
Because I didn't.
Absolutely.
That's the first time I thought of it.
Yeah.
It was when Mitch just said Banks. So some of that is like carryover from past wounds. You know what I mean?
What we also didn't get was, hey, Micah Mazuka really needs to get it figured out. He came in and some guys, it just takes time to adjust to, what the new way of doing things is. We don't do it the same here.
Close as he
didn't get any of that.
Hey, to the good, we haven't had any real glaring issues, right? That was as close as he got.
I mean, the only thing that you walk out of there kind of wondering about is the number of players who were hurt. We already knew about the offensive linemen and, some of the other guys, of course, like Carter Nelson, who were coming off surgery. But like when he started rattling off Jameer Khan, there were a couple of, what's that?
Jalen
George. Yeah, there were a couple. We knew about Dawson Merritt, but there were a few in there where I was like, that's a downer. Like that's a guy, Jalen George. Yeah, that's a guy that I think the coaches felt like they really wanted to see in the spring. And maybe they still will be able to see enough of him. He's just not going to obviously be, I don't know what his injury is, but he's, clearly not going to be out there scrimmaging. So you would hope that they can get it. And I think he's made a good impression. So, that because of the position that it is, spring, that would have, he didn't, fortunately, that would have been a really tough one to digest. And I think Jalen George is similar in that.
Oh, Mitch, let me get you out of here on this. And hopefully I think I may have a chance to see you in June. Are you Friday game or Saturday game for Royals Dodgers?
In June. Oh, yeah. Friday. I'm going Friday night, the 27th.
Saturday. Let me ask you, though.
We're taking my team and coaching a tournament down there on Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, Frank. Are you at?
Not at the K.
I thought
you're not playing at the K?
Not at the K.
But I'll be there on Friday night.
What's your level of excitement on Caglione?
It's measured because I know we're not going to see him in the big leagues for a few months at least. I'm excited to see him in Omaha. I hope he doesn't skip AAA. And I don't think JJ Piccolo does that. I think that like they're not, Alex Gordon did, and that was sad. Although he made an appearance later. I think that he starts right now he's probably they're probably scratching their head about, do we start him in high A? Because that was definitely the plan going in. I mean, he's hitting the cover off the ball and maybe just goes to Double A. That'd be cool. And then if that happens and then you really accelerate the process, you could see him in Omaha before, like around Memorial Day or certainly before the 4th of July. I was thrilled that they drafted him because I saw him up close and I wrote about him. So I didn't really get to know him, but I got to know his story and his path at the College World Series last year. So I was very excited that I was hoping when the draft started, knowing where the Royals were at, that he was going to be there. He was the guy that I wanted to see them get. I don't care about the position that he played and what they have at first base. I just feel like he's going to be a very solid big leaguer. So don't rush it, but all signs are good. And I'd like to see him at Warner Park for a couple months this year.
I assume you'll slot the White Sox last in the division, but do you feel like you have a good handle on the Central?
I'm sure the Guardians will be good. Tigers looked good last year at times. I don't know. No, I haven't studied it. I don't really do that. I don't have time for that. But when the season starts, I'll have a good handle on my Royals, and then you'll pretty quickly start to see them play the other teams in the division. My 14-year-old does. Like, he could probably tell you the entire batting order and starting rotation for all of those teams, and I'll just rely on him if I have a question about it. Like, who's going to be good? What's that?
You're raising them right. That's okay.
Yeah, it's out of my hands at this point. Like, I don't even know where he gets his information. Honestly, like, are you watching game? No, I mean, it all comes from different channels than the way that I've ever digested sports. But whatever sport it is, like, he has. I mean, maybe I don't know if he just has a photographic memory or whatever it is, but his ability to just come with names is kind of shocking to me.
Picking up the phone and calling Shafe. Yeah, don't be excited about that Bo Naylor guy. A little swing and miss behind the plate. Nah, I'm just kidding, Mitch.
I mean, 14-year-old is like peak know everybody on the roster energy. Like that was
right.
That was
I was that way, I guess, because of the baseball cards.
Right?
I don't know how it works for kids today. I just
it's
admire it.
those video games, you know.
Good genes, man. That's what it is. It's genes.
Mitch, we appreciate the time as always. We will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, guys.
Coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Live, a very special guest, Summit League champion head coach Chris Crutchfield for your Omaha men's basketball will join us next on Hurrdat Sports Live. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live here on Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where I've told you can come out here, get your fish and chips game right. I know, Fridays are coming up. You're going to your fish fries. Instead of standing outside trying to wait for fish and chips in a line, I know those places get a little crazy. Come on over here to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Get your fish and chips game right. And I promise you, we've got beer here too. You can get that. Or if you're feeling a Reuben, they've got that as well as part of their March specials. Make sure you stop in and check it out. We are efforting Coach Crutchfield, the Summit League Coach of the Year from your Omaha Mavericks, your Summit League champions. Very excited to talk to Coach Crutch.
Me too.
I don't think I've actually had the pleasure before.
Yeah, good dude.
We've got him here now.
Really good dude.
That is terrific news. Joining us now is Coach Crutchfield from the Omaha Mavericks, the Summit League champions and NCAA tournament bound for the first time. Coach, how are you this morning?
Good morning, guys. I am fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Coach, it's been too long, but I full disclosure, I'm so insecure, Coach. The more popular you got, the more I felt like you'd think I was just hopping on the bandwagon, man. It was easy to talk. It was easy to talk when you first got here, but I was like, man, I don't want to be that guy. Even though I'm ride or die with Omaha from the get-go, man. Congratulations.
No doubt.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Coach, I wanted to just start right off the bat here because, I'll be honest. I was a pretty vocal critic of how you were putting this team together. I'm not going to play around with you. And I'll tell you why. I fiercely defend kids coming out of Nebraska and them getting opportunities to play at the next level, right? And so I see him going to other Summit League schools, and I'm seeing you guys in your first couple of years not winning as much as I'd like, and I get a little frustrated, right? And I have to give you a ton of credit because it'd be really easy to listen to idiots like me and not follow through on the vision of what you had for your program. What made you so convicted that this was the right way to do it here?
First of all, let me say this, and I totally understand what you just said, and you wasn't the only one. And I will tell you this: we did recruit a couple of those kids that went other places in our league. We did go after them hard. We offered them, and Omaha wasn't sexy at the time.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We understood it, but we did our job. We did our due diligence. We just wasn't at a level where those kids thought they could come in here and have fun and have success. Now that will change. That has changed. So, but my conviction was to do it this way, and we stayed with the plan from day one. And I would have loved to have some Omaha kids, but we was able to get 3 or 4 kids in the portal. We was able to get another junior college kid, and we got older really fast.
Yeah.
From year 2 to year 3, we got old really fast, and I think that made a difference in our team based on what we went through in the non-conference schedule.
Coach, it's so interesting to watch this thing kind of unfold because I remember the times where, and this wasn't that long ago. I remember then your coach Crandall, I was doing some signings for some stuff that you guys needed for a fundraiser and an auction, and he brought him over to me when I was working with Gary, and he had this young man in the truck. And he had just come back from the airport. He was coming back fresh from Georgia. He said, "Hey, I want you to, this is JJ White, this is Coach Benning, this, that, and the third." And so I just kind of picked his brain. I'm talking to him through across the cab in the truck. This is when he first got here, right? And he says, I'm kind of picking his brain. I want to know about his story. And all he kept getting back to me, I just want to compete. I'm just competitive. I just want to compete. It was like the same thing that he kept saying on repeat. And then I watched the evolution and kind of how the role changed this year and assuming the role. And I watch you two go back and forth with your interactions. There's no doubt he has a ton of respect for you. There's no doubt you have a ton of respect for him, but it's all love because you guys both compete, man. Like, I got to go back to that because that's all he's talked about. And I look at how this team has grown, and he's kind of just the epitome of the story, right? Just competitive stamina, regardless of what's going on.
That's exactly him. And I don't know if anybody know, I'm sure this story will get out here pretty soon before we leave to go to the tournament. But we go back, JJ and I go back to high school days. Like, he was a freshman on the high school team back in Norman, Oklahoma with my kids. And I've watched them, grow and mature. And I mean, I used to get on his butt. I was an assistant at Oklahoma, and he was a sophomore in high school. I used to get on his butt about body language and not having a good attitude. And this is in high school. And I moved around a little bit, stayed connected because his family and my family are close. But when it was time for him to come here, he had no other offers. I mean, he had just finished his freshman year at Kobe Junior College out in Kansas, and he had no offers. I got the job. We were looking for a point guard. And I'll be honest with you, now he knows this, I wasn't 100% sold on him. At that time. Yeah. And he ended up coming through on a visit, and he got here and he loved it. And I told him, this is the things that we're looking for. This is what you're going to have to do to really play here. And I've been hard on that kid, Damon, for 3 years. I've been hard on him. Because I know him. He's like a son to me. Yeah. And you know that relationship. So I've pushed him to a place that where I've never pushed anybody else. And this year, he's really grown up, man, and he is a competitor.
One of the first.
And that's all we talk about. That's all we talk about every day is playing hard and competing. And they've done it.
Talking to some of the guys in the community, even when you first got here, one of the things that everybody said was, he's such a good guy. He loves people. He loves kids, and he's going to love the university. And we use it in other terms sometimes. When I just said this about Coach Rhule the other day. I said it's the first coach in a long time that has a vision for the university and loves the university, kind of that exceeds what we think about it. And it's just refreshing. I get that sense when you're back home, and I know it's your alma mater, and I know this is kind of where you have your roots, but your sincerity for Omaha and the university and the kids, you hear it in almost every interview you do promoting your basketball program. Like that relationship that you feel, your players have to feel it too, right? You don't go from year 1 to year 3 without being as other-centered as you guys appear to be.
And I talk about it, man. We're very intentional as a staff about, certain things we say to them. And I tell them how much I love this school, how much this school changed my life when I got here, and the people that poured into me. And that's why I stayed around and went to grad school. And, that's why I've always kept a pulse on this program. And when the opportunity did come back, I jumped at it. And everybody know, I would have came here for 2 nickels. It wouldn't have been about whatever. And I would have came back just because I knew what this place could be. And my wife is from Omaha. All her family is here in Omaha. So this is a special place for me, and I wanted us to win. I wanted to make sure people knew you can win here. We have some things we could sell. And I guess I get emotional because I'm in cry mode right now.
So, it's okay.
Everything comes up, I cry all the time. I cried this morning in the car driving on a phone call with somebody that I hadn't talked to in a while. So it's just stuff like that this time that I'm really emotional just because the plan, the vision that we had, it came to fruition.
Two things, because now you're gonna, and people know that. Listen, like the only thing I'm good at is being emotional. So I mean, listen here, I'm here for it. Two things. Number one, there's two. Administration is always important. Administration's vision is always important. I've had time to sit down and talk with Adrian. We've had lunch. He's somebody that I think very highly of. You surrounded yourself with the staff you've built. I'm very good friends with Brian Page, who you have invested in your staff. When you talk about leadership and administration, how important was it for you guys where you were trying to go to surround yourself with like-minded people?
It was very important, and I made that a comment, during my press conference, like the alignment between your athletic director and the head coach, then the alignment between your chancellor and the athletic director.
Hey, she's a gem, isn't she? She is an absolute gem.
I love her. I love her from day one. She has been in my corner from day one.
Yep.
Even my first year here, when we wasn't very good, she called me over to her office one day. I remember this. I mean, I think we might have been 3-12.
Yeah.
And she brought me over to her office. I said, okay, this lady's going to fire me already. So I went up to the office, halfway nervous, halfway excited. And she handed me this framed picture of me at my press conference. And she had got it framed and had a little note on it. She said, I just want you to know that the first year is hard. I understand it, but I want you to know that we got your back. And that did it all for me right there. I knew right then and there that we was going to get this place turned around. We was going to get it going because I had the backing of all the people that made all the important decisions.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, how about the vision? Right, I know this conference fairly well, and I've watched how you've built this team. And this was from talking to Gary a little bit too, because I remember I can't remember what game it was, and I said, "Hey, what's going on here with kind of the growth versus the roster?" And he was like, DB, you can look at the size and length, which is what I first noticed. I'm like, I remember, you're very strict with the metrics and kind of how you want guys to be built. And he said you have to give it time in the summit because we're going to roll the dice that we're just going to be different than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, we watch you guys, whether it's on television or in person, it's your ability to guard, defend, switch, be multiple. It is vastly different than what anybody else in the league is. I mean, KC's close, but they're not as skilled as you guys are. So you kind of have their number, but is that what you envisioned with how to do things differently when you're trying to cast the vision?
No doubt. And I've been doing this for a long time, Damon. I've seen good teams, I've seen bad teams. I've been in big leagues, small leagues, and I've told our staff that this is where we have to get to. We can't copycat another team in the summit. This is how we're going to win. We're going to be different, but we can attract these kind of athletes in Omaha.
Yep.
A lot of places can't get these types of players, so I wanted 6'5", 6'6" wings that had +4, +5 wingspans. I wanted big, powerful, low base guys in the post that can anchor down and defend and can hold a post position. Whether you're skilled or not, I didn't care, but I wanted big girth and guys that was physical and guys that was tough. Then I needed quick, agile guards that could do everything, that can pass, dribble, and shoot. And we just blended it all together. You got to have about 3 or 4 shooters on your roster. I mean, guys that can flat out shoot the basketball. We got that. And then the scheme was we're going to switch 1 through 4.
Yeah, yes, you do.
And we're going to get up and harass people and use our athleticism, use our length. We're going to switch ball screens, and sometimes we might do something different with our 5-man on ball screens, but we had the talent and the athleticism to do a lot of different things defensively. So we was able to do it, and and it worked in our league, and it really caused some problems for people in our league.
It's just amazing how you can turn people's lights out defensively. I mean, they just go through these crazy – and St. Thomas has tried it a couple of times, and, they clutch and touch and grab, and it's just like this. You can't out Omaha these guys.
I love it. That's a good phrase right there. I'm gonna start using that.
You have to get that on some shirts, Coach.
They tried, and they eventually got frustrated. They were fortunate the game was called kind of the way it was earlier. It would have got worse earlier than that because I'm like, you're not gonna beat them at their game, and then they started to rush, and you see ghosts because you're not usually open, and even when you are, you were sped up. That was fantastic. I'm just trying to figure out how you got them to dial in, knowing that it was already a foregone conclusion that you were playing the championship. You were going to be in the dance, and you got better as the game went on.
Well, I say this, and our team know this because I love Kelvin Sampson, guys. He's like I idolize Kelvin Sampson, and I talk about him. I show videos to our guys of Houston. And I show video of him talking about their team and how competitive they are, how hard they play. And we kind of mimic what they do a little bit. We don't have quite the athletes they have, but we try to imitate what they do. And we've gotten close to it. But at the same time, I just think our guys, if you're competitors, you're going to try to compete every time you get a chance to.
Yeah.
And we told them that night we knew we was in Saturday night. And after the game was over, we all met in the conference in the hotel meeting room, and we talked about what do you guys want? You're in. Our goal was to get to the NCAA tournament. You're in. But our goal was to come to Sioux Falls and be the tournament champions, right? So you still got another game to play to get to your goal. So if you want to go into the NCAA tournament and put an asterisk by it and be happy, that's fine too. A lot of people still be happy, but we're not built like that. We built to go win it. And they all was like, "You right, Coach. We good. And they all left the room. And next morning we met and started game planning for St. Thomas, and the rest is history.
Coach, so I can tell. I know this is the first time you and I have got a chance to talk, but we're going to be able to ride together because we both ride for Omaha, right? Like that's
No doubt.
we're going to be able to ride together. I got to ask though. So early in the year, you guys you played some marquee games. You play your Minnesota, you play your Iowa State, you play UNLV. You had some games in there against kind of like opponents that you struggled with early on. You get off to that slow start in non-conference play. Like, how do you turn the switch from losing to like a Southern Utah and an Alabama State to be able to flip that over and be as dominant as you were in the Summit League through the course of the season?
We just kept them going. And I want to give announcement to Rob Jeter. Rob Jeter's the head coach at Southern Utah.
Yeah.
And we go play Vegas, and we played them close. Could have won the game, right? Okay, so we jump on the bus, drive 2 hours to 6,000 feet elevation to Southern Utah to play Southern Utah. And was bad. Altitude got us. And after the end of the game, he came and gave me a big old hug because we're friends. We know each other. He said, "Crutch, you have enough talent to win that league." He said, "I know you don't feel good about it now, but you got enough talent to win the league." Okay, we go on, shake hands. And I end up meeting him back in the foyer later after the game was over, after we did our media stuff. And he said, "I'm just telling you that there's no other team in your league, in that league like that." And he knew because he was at Western Illinois. And I called him the other day and I said, "You was right. You was right. We just had to get our stuff together, and it took us a while to gel. But I'm thankful that those guys went through what they went through in the non-con because it made us tougher, and it's brought us together to be ready to go on and run like we did in the Summit League."
And it paid dividends too. I just watched them yesterday against Utah Tech, and that's a good basketball team, right? That's just one of those things where, I mean, people may see a name or something like that, and there's this immediate perception that comes to mind. But again, a team very similar, long, athletic, can defend and get up and down. It's hard to win. I don't care, but it just is. I'm an ACC fan. I look at the conference. It's not very good, Crutch, and I'm like, it's just hard to win basketball games.
So check this out. After the Abilene Christian game, which is probably one of our worst games of the year.
I think that was
right?
when I talked to Gary too, by the way.
We come back home. We play Abilene Christian. We don't show up. We don't play. And I get home that night and I walk through the door. My wife, she didn't even stay around to say hello after the game was over with. So that's how mad she was. She said, I thought you said we had a chance to be good. I said, we are. Don't worry. Just take a little time. I just start packing some boxes.
I was like, can't catch any breaks at home either, Coach.
The only thing you need to pack now is your bags for your destination, man. And enjoy the Sunday, man, with the fellas and the staff. And, man, Coach, super proud of you.
Fun. Well, you make sure you have your face in the building, okay?
You got it.
Coach,
okay.
we appreciate the time, and congratulations on a well-deserved Coach of the Year and on being Summit League champs. Can't wait to see you guys go dancing.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate it, Coach.
For having me on. Thank you.
That is Coach Crutchfield from your Omaha men's basketball team.
Just a real dude.
2025 Summit League champions.
Got a nice ring to it.
It does have a nice ring to it. We'll be back to see.
Are you sure? Do you want to take a break? Ask Shane, do you want to take a break, or do you just want to upload the segments as they are?
I would say just upload. I mean, I gotta hear what your picks are.
I was gonna say we gotta get some picks in here.
You want take a quickie?
Let's take a real quick one.
We'll be back in 60 to see if I can stay hot.
See if we can get some winners.
See if I can stay hot.
On Hurrdat Sports Live. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Reminding you, get over to supernovas.com to make sure you get tickets for their upcoming match. They'll be back in just a little over a week here at the CHI Health Center. Make sure you get your tickets. Get in there early. Those tickets, especially the good ones, go fast, as we've seen great attendance throughout the year for the Supernovas. Get over to supernovas.com to buy those tickets today. DB.
I said maybe. Yes.
Gonna be the one that saves me.
Are you gonna watch Utah Tech and Utah Valley tonight?
No, not even a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, they are in competition because I think that's about the same time as UCF and Kansas.
I'm just saying, there's no world
in which you would watch that.
In which I'm watching Utah Tech.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. My sicko meter only goes so far.
And
I draw the line at Utah Tech.
It's a very good time of the year because I think you'll want to see some teams.
I do want to see
before
some teams.
you put them, you knock them off in your bracket.
Utah Tech is not one of those teams I want to see.
Who's doing the bracket reveal release thing for us?
I don't know.
Because Sasha, just on a drive-by, which is kind of what she likes to do, just drive on by.
On a humbug.
Was like, hey, you guys going to do the tournament thing, aren't you? Well, yeah, Sash. Why not?
Like a bracket?
Yeah.
Like our picks?
I haven't done one in 2 years.
We're going to do our picks a week from tomorrow, live on the air.
All 68?
You're going to run through it.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, we are.
Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
That's not fun.
We're going to do it.
It's bad radio.
We're going to do it.
Not that we are not accustomed to that because we're not on radio.
No.
You are looking live.
It might be bad radio, but it's great podcast.
Oh, that's right. You can run it back.
That's right.
Wait, what did he say? Why did he like what he did?
Why did he like Utah Tech?
I don't really.
Maybe we should bring on Nick Baugh for a little Old Dominion.
Old Dominion.
Who do you like tonight, DB?
A couple today, Ravi.
Today. We start hot and heavy in about half an hour.
Yeah, this one's at 1. I like San Jose State getting 1.
You big Tim Miles guy?
Yep. Ooh. I am in this one.
Me likey.
San Jose State will win the basketball game.
San Jose State, okay.
And I like Georgia Tech. So
Georgia.
Get your $5. Get your $10 bankroll started for the rest of the day with Georgia Tech.
1.5 point favorites over
I like
the Cavaliers.
And money line. I mean, you'd be a money line guy.
Oh, 100%.
You'd pay a little bit extra because
get a little juice.
Money is clearly no object to you.
Oh, it's an object.
And just one you just have great concern for. And I like San Jose State.
San Jose State and.
Do you know what I was tempted to do? But
What's that?
It's changed. I'm looking at it now. Scores and odds.
What's that?
When it first came out, I was all over Georgetown. 3.5.
DePaul?
Yeah.
Who do you like better?
It's 4.5 now, but Georgetown will bury them.
Who do you like better as a matchup for Creighton, or do you care?
I don't care. Aesthetically, I prefer Georgetown.
Yeah.
Just because it won't be as choppy.
I just feel like Georgetown's a little bit more of a live dog.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, if you just want a Creighton win, DePaul's better.
Yeah.
For the matchup.
But in terms of watching the game, a quality of game,
Georgetown.
I'll take Georgetown.
For sure.
And I think Georgetown will hammer.
You think Georgetown hammers DePaul?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you can get that thing down to maybe 3.5, maybe look at Georgetown.
I would probably take it up to 5.
Fine, yeah. If you think they're going to hammer them.
That's just my feel. I mean, did you not watch that game the other night?
I did. I'm
gonna take Cooley and being upset. I am, because he's got to be livid.
Cranky Cooley.
Did you watch that thing?
It didn't help him last year when they were getting offered.
Yeah.
I didn't do him a lot of good.
Different year.
Kenneth Pomeroy has it as a 4-point win for Georgetown.
Yeah,
so
that's probably about
4.5's right in the right neighborhood.
That's right.
So there you go. That is.
And so take your $10 winnings and come here later on at about 1:30, watch some more games, and buy some lunch.
Get some fish and chips.
Wait, they don't pay out that quick, do they?
If you're at the casino, they will. You can go take your ticket right
Who's
up the
going
window.
to the casino already?
I don't know. Maybe try to get some bets in. Can I tell you? I went somewhere to get lunch yesterday.
Yeah. You're not going to say, are you?
I'm not going to say where because I'm about to bury him. I was going in. This is lunch, by the way. Lunch.
Ravi here for endorsements.
Lunch prices. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, oh, fish and chips kind of sound good.
You're on the fish and chips hype train.
So since we've been talking about them, I kind of want some, but I wasn't over here. I was out west a little bit and a little bit north. So I was like, okay, there's this place.
Okay, I'm trying to narrow it down, but keep going.
I'll tell you off air. I'm just not going to bury them live because I don't want to do that. But I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get some fish and chips. You know what they were trying to charge for fish and chips at lunch?
What?
$40.
You're bougie, but that's doing too much.
I didn't think I was doing too much. I went to a place I thought was just a place.
Hey, so my buddy Mark, he got a strawberry. He went to Five Guys.
Yeah.
Got a strawberry shake, a bacon cheeseburger, and what he called small fries.
But it's like the whole bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think he paid?
$28.
$26.
Oh, I'm pretty close. Five Guys will get you.
Do you know what groceries I could buy? Now, ground beef is expensive, but I could go 80-20 for $4.99 a pound. Get 3 pounds. Okay. Get 3 potatoes.
How many Little Debbie's can Solder get for $26?
I don't know, man. You should see my buddy Aaron's pantry.
About 140 of them.
Probably.
We'll be back tomorrow. More Hurrdat Sports Live.